Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, the board did meet in closed session this evening, and Trustee Scott, if we can have those announcements.
Okay, yes. In closed session, with respect of every item of business to be discussed in closed session pursuant to Government Code 54956.9, conference with legal counsel pending litigation, Coalition to Save San Marin versus Novato Unified School District, Marin County Superior Court case number, civil number 1702295. Direction was given.
Okay, thank you. I do not have any comment cards for non-agenda public comment, so we'll move on to that. And just, let's see, yeah, we don't have to approve. Oh, we do need to approve the agenda. Sorry, my apologies. So let's approve this agenda.
I'd like to move approval of the agenda.
Okay.
Second.
Trustee Cooper is a first. Trustee Scott is a second. All in favor to approve this agenda this evening? 7-0. And just to remind the audience, this is a special meeting of the board. It's like a board workshop. It's information to the board. So what we're going to do in regards to process going forward, staff is going to present their presentation. And then the board will be allowed to ask some questions throughout the presentation, but I am going to wait on the blue cards from the public until the very end of the whole presentation. And then we'll have everybody be able to talk, and we'll go back to the board as well after that. So that will be the process this evening. Hearing the presentation, board can ask questions during the presentation, and the community will have their questions or their comments at the very end. So let's move forward. Yancy, are you gonna, or is Mike? Jim? Superintendent Hogaboon, somebody. And board, you have a new version of this on your table, so.
Okay, thank you, trustees. Thank you, members of the public, for being here. We appreciate that. So we're going to jump right in, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how we got to where we are, which is the facilities master planning process and the bond implementation committee. Then Mike will talk about the updates about the bond projects that we've been working on so far this summer, and the ones that have been prioritized. Yancy will talk about the financial update, and then we'll talk about future bond projects and where those might fall in the mix. So we will jump in. So Measure G. So we started the facilities master planning process, I think in 15-16 was the year. We hired Kevin from WLC Architects to help us with that. So, December 15th of 2015 is when we started. We held meetings at every school site. Sometimes we had I think at least 2 meetings at every school site. I think at some of our secondary schools we had 3 meetings. We had board workshops. The pictures up there are, the second picture over on the right is a board workshop we had on a Saturday morning. The picture on the right is what a lot of the school sites did, which was they prioritized the needs that they had, and people put different sticky notes on different, projects that they liked. A lot of times we went back and did that 2 or 3 times. So there you go. We started in December of 15. They conducted over 35 site meetings. There were teachers, staff, parents, PTA members, boosters, students, board members, and consultants. And we identified in that first round over 500 million worth of needs. So we realized that there was, so obviously there's a lot of facilities needs. Just a reminder for our public, we get no state funding for facilities. Let me repeat that. We get no state funding for facilities. So we realize that going out and asking the board for a bond is a big deal. We know that it affects a lot of your taxes. But if we did not do that, we would not be able to do anything. So unfortunately, the state does not give each district a certain amount of money to be used for facilities. So we totally appreciate the fact that we have to ask you, and we totally appreciate the fact that this community entrusted us with the $222 million, but it affects everybody's home, taxes and things. So if we got somebody from the state, we might not have to do that, but that's where we are. So the $500 million was never going to fly. So we kind of went around to the second time with our meetings at the schools and said, you're going to have to prioritize. So for example, I know that all of air conditioning was on their initial list. When they went back and said, we also would like a new multi-purpose room, we'd like to make the kind of weird cafeteria thing into a STEAM center. We want to move the front of the school from the back to the front. We want to do these other things. Then schools really had to prioritize. And so a lot of things that were maybe on that initial list at each school fell off because there's no way that we were going to be able to go and ask the community for $500 million. So cut it back to about $205 million, and then the board approved the final facilities master plan. So this is kind of the kind of review of it. We gathered information, we identified the work at each school site, we estimated the cost of repair and replacement, we assessed the educational suitability at each site. Each site had its own facilities master plan. We prioritized all those. It received input from everybody. Then we developed the ed specs. So the architect would basically use an estimate for how much square footage would cost, which obviously has gone up quite a bit since then. And then we published the final facilities master plan after it was approved. So now getting into the costs, this all along was meant to be a fairly heavy secondary bond measure. You can't see the numbers up there, but the highest numbers at Novato High School at $42.7 million, followed closely by San Marin at $37. And then after that, you have San Jose Middle School, which is at $29 million, and Sinaloa at I'm sorry, I think it's in Sinaloa at 19. So it was always meant to be that the needs really that were identified were really at the secondary level. The two elementary schools that were prioritized the highest are our oldest school, really Linwood and Olive. Those are the two that were really slated for significant costs more than any other school. And again, those are our two oldest schools. So Linwood, it was 12 million and Olive was 10. The elementary schools ranged from 7 million after that down to 4 million. So that was where that came from. So all those amounted to, on the top there, 199 million. We have some money in there. We put classroom device refresh, which is the Chromebooks that are going out to all of our students now. That was $6 million. Then we had some money for contingency, which was about 10.2 million, which by the way was not near enough. So 10.2 is where that is. Program management 4 million, and then moving expenses was 1.6. So that leads to the whole total of 222 million. So then, after the bond measure was passed, we established a bond implementation committee, which was a superintendent's advisory committee to help prioritize all the facilities projects. We moved forward by consensus. We had a liaison at every school site, and their task was to act in the best interest of NUSD. So now we have all these priorities, all these different schools, and how do we decide which ones to go ahead with? So that was the role of the bond implementation committee. So we had members up there from all these different elements, all of our high schools, middle schools, elementary school, board members, students and parents, facilities and maintenance, our classified union, our teachers union, the arts, athletic directors, IT, curriculum and instruction, the charter school, food services, PTA, community members, ICOC. What's ICOC? The what? Oh, Citizens Oversight Committee, thank you. And then our construction manager and architects. And these are a list of who was on there, and the total was about 50 people or so were on there. So that's everybody that made it onto the committee. So it was a pretty extensive membership and a pretty extensive process. So we started with a ranking. We tried to come up with the criteria. So how do we decide which project is going to go first and which one's more important? So the top two were the educational impact and the school safety. Those ended up being the top two, and then programmatic needs, project visibility and accountability to the bond and the campaign, long-term planning and facility condition, and then the last tier was leverage additional revenues, minimize construction costs. The state has since passed a state bond that we have our last bond measure, we were able to get some good matching funds from the state. This time our opportunity to do that is not as great. One of the things is that we wanted some of the benefit to be for all schools, that there be some benefit like with the Chromebooks. to attract and retain students, and also for our community to use our facilities. So that's kind of the order of the priorities. So the top 15 projects that came out are up there. So security systems, classroom technology toolkits, that's making sure that all classrooms have a projector, audio, all that kind of thing. Flexible furniture. Those top 3 things were throughout the whole district at every school. Then there were most elementary schools needed their stage and kitchen modernization, so that was done at elementary. The Linwood remodel, Olive remodel, San Jose stage and kitchen, San Jose air conditioning, Sinaloa gym, Novato High School Performing Arts Center, Novato High School STEM, Novato High School Synthetic Turf Second Field, San Marin STEM Center, San Marin Makerspace, San Marin High School Performing Arts Center remodel, and San Marin Synthetic Turf Second Field. So those were the top 15 projects. Throughout the process, we looked at different, and I'm gonna, Sally, could you pass out that big sheet? There was a big, long sheet that had all of these. So was it you ranked it in your top 5, then we ranked it, was it the top 3 in terms of need, that school really needed it, and then top 3 in terms of the value. So you can see right there how many categories were hit. So just to take security systems, that would be something that would affect all schools, so it's district-wide. It hit 4 categories. It was number 4 in the top 5. It was number 6 in terms of need and 6 in terms of top 3 value. So I won't go through the whole thing, but the committee really took a long time to assess why would one project be more important than another project. So again, this is the end of the recommended project list that we ended up with. You can see those up there, and you're getting kind of the big, huge 11 by 17 spreadsheet of what the final projects were. And so that became known as Phase 1 project. So we basically took about the first 100 million of projects, and that became Phase 1. And then the second 100 million was basically Phase 2. So we do know a few things. We know that we probably did not build in as much of a contingency as we should have. We probably didn't build in, well, we didn't build in enough escalation. And we also know due to fires and just the economy of how things are in the building industry, projects that were maybe going to be 10 million are now 12 million. So the 222 million is not going to be able to pay for all the projects that were listed in the facilities master plan because costs have just gone up too high. So the board is already, you've already approved the Phase 1 projects. It's going to be difficult with Phase 2 because the bond implementation committee, and Yancey will go through this, is going to have to make a recommendation to you all as to which projects get done this time and which projects are going to have to wait till another one. So I want to be clear with everybody up there. The facilities master plan was meant to be a guide. It wasn't ever meant to be exactly everything that's in there, and not everything that's in that was listed either Phase 1 or Phase 2 is going to be able to get done. We're not going to have the money to do that. So I just want to be crystal clear up front that even because of escalating costs, we can't do everything that's in there, and we're going to have to prioritize which of these projects in Phase 2 get done and which don't. So you can see the top 18 right there. All those are secondary projects except 16 and 17, which is the Linwood remodel and the Linwood moving fans off of Linwood, and then the Olive renovation. So of the 18 projects, 16 of them are secondary focused or district-wide focused. And that is kind of a history of where we were. So I think what I want you to know, again, we're not going to have enough money to do all the projects in Phase 2. You've already approved this list of Phase 1 projects, and you're going to get an update on those that we've started with. And a lot of thought was put into who was on the budget implementation committee, and we had, again, 50 people representing every school and all those different facets. They looked at a lot of different criteria when they decided on which of these we were going to start with. As you know, we've sold the first $50 million worth of bonds, and Nancy will get into that later on, but that's kind of the start of the facilities master plan, kind of to where we are now.
Questions from the board in regard to process to date? We'll just keep moving forward. Okay.
To be clear, the ones with the blue stars on it are phase one. I got confused about what
This is all phase one.
all of this is.
Yes, yes.
Do those stars mean anything? The blue stars up at the,
Sorry, I mean.
there it is.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah, I forgot about that. Okay, so the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 were ones that, while the bond implementation committee had started to meet, the board said these five things have to be done. So it's kind of like, thanks for your input, but we're going to make sure that we take care of the bond admin costs. We are rolling out the Chromebooks to grades 3 through 12. The IT infrastructure upgrades, the deferred maintenance, and the San Marin High School PA system. Those 5 things have to get done. So you pulled those off and said these will be done.
And you said line items 16 and 17, in fact, the board has already moved forward on, right?
These were prioritized as phase 1 projects. Yes.
I mean, Linwood remodel, Linwood fans, aren't we under contract to do those already?
No.
Okay. then
We
I'm
haven't
confused.
started. Those are phase 1, but remember, phase 1 is going to cost $100 million. We've only issued $50 million worth of bonds, so we haven't started on every single one of those projects yet.
Okay, so.
But
the
they are
ones that
phase
The
one.
ones that are in blue stars, we're moving on already. The ones that are not blue stars, clear down through item 18, are phase 1, but we
Yeah, and
haven't
Mike,
started yet.
Mike next is going to go through which ones we've started. I think the only 2 that we haven't are 14 through 18.
Okay, thanks.
correct? We haven't started the second turf fields. We haven't started the Linwood or Oliver models, and we haven't started the Sinloa gym. But all those other ones up there, we have started on.
Okay, so no questions from the board. We'll move on to Mike's going to do an update on projects that we have that are happening right now, that we're working on.
Sorry. Well, good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to speak, and welcome to the public. I'm going to try something different because I tend to bend over too much, and this microphone doesn't work, so I'm going to try this one. Ha! Technology, isn't it great? So what I'd like to do tonight is provide you an update on the Phase 1 facility projects, and you've received this before, and little feedback I got is to go a little bit faster, not dwell so much on detailed information. I'd like to give you a quick review of each project, and some of these there will be no change unless you have questions. We'll just move right through those. I also simplified the summary table you'll see in the lower left-hand corner. Focus more on the schematic design for those that we have presented to you and you've approved. There's a budget down there. For those that we have not reached schematic design yet, it's to be determined. And also remove the expenditures to date. We'll give that to you the next update we do in the next couple of months. And then focus just on kind of recent projects. So try to include some updated photos for those projects we've had some progress on and just give you a good feel of what we're doing out there. So the first one is near and dear to my heart. It's the administrative cost, covers the salaries and supplies we need to manage a program. Sorry, I do like to get paid. But of very much importance is the bond issuance cost. It does cost to issue those bonds. We've already funded one for the first bond issuance. We have another one coming up in 2019 and 2 more after that. And also the requirement to be audited every year. We've already had 1 audit and we're getting ready for our 2nd year audit coming up here in the next month or so. And this is for the life of the program. Next, in the specific projects, these are, again, district-wide, is our IT Classroom Toolkit. We sort of took a little bit of a shift. If you remember, we had a model classroom set up at, I guess it was called the Renovation Center out on C Street. That wasn't working so well. We weren't getting a lot of volume of people out there to experience it and look at it. So we sort of re-racked our thoughts and came up with a different option, and we were able to secure 2 classrooms at actual sites. So we have a classroom at San Jose Middle School and a classroom at Lou Sutton Elementary School, and we are actually converting those 2 model classrooms, and it'll cover a couple of these projects, the first of which is a toolkit. So what you see as photos up there is what we're putting in those rooms. We are installing 75-inch display TV monitors. We're using a NUC system as an interface, which is the upper left picture, that interfaces with the iPad and connects to the Chromebooks through mirroring software. We're also using the front row Juno speaker enhancement system, which is the upper right photo. We're installing those things in these classrooms so that teachers can use them and students can use them, and we can get direct feedback on how that's working. We took a detour from our short throw projector system. We got some use out of that. Now we thought we'd try the other side, which was the display. So we're installing those in those classrooms, and we'll see how it goes. We're hoping to get feedback over the next couple of months to develop sort of that standard toolkit so we can bring it back to you for approval and start rolling out hopefully the summer of 2019 and get some of this technology out in our classrooms. Okay. Infrastructure update. This is a very important one as well. We currently have an infrastructure out there. We found through our consultant that we hired that we have a lot of redundancy and some inefficiencies out there. We kind of have more than we need. So in an effort to make ourselves more efficient, we'd like to reduce the number of, they're called IDFs, the independent data frame, the little hubs on a campus site that take the main signal from the MDF and get it to the rest of the campus. We found in most sites across our district we have too many of those, some cases way too many of those. And that, of course, involves equipment, maintenance, extra cabling, a lot of extra work and money that we don't need to spend. So with that, consultants remapped each site, and we're currently almost done with that. So we're hoping to bring you a schematic design really soon with that plan in place to show you what we want to do at each site, and hope to get that approved, and then we can start working on that in the summer of 2019. This also ties into that model classroom I mentioned earlier, as we did reduce the number of drops into that classroom. I think currently we average 10 to 12, and we're reducing that to about 6. So that just saves us some time and energy by reducing that in each classroom to support the technology I just showed you before with the toolkit option. Again, looking to start that summer 2019 and finish it over the next 2 years. So next one, the Wonderworld Chromebooks. We had a lot of fun this summer. We purchased 2,500 Chromebooks for phase 2, which was our biggest one because we covered 4 grades this year, 4th, 6th, 9th, and 11th grades. The high schoolers have received their Chromebooks, and I believe the 4th and 6th graders are getting theirs either this week or next week as we roll those out. The folks in the photo was the IT all-hands-on-deck evolution over the summer as they checked in the Chromebooks, imaged them, and got them all ready for distribution. It was interesting to see 2,500 Chromebooks stacked together. Again, we have 1 more year to get this rolled out. So next summer 2019, we will purchase the remaining 3 grades worth of Chromebooks. And that will complete the initial rollout of the Chromebooks. But as a reminder, in the 4th year, we'll be doing our first replacement program for the year 1 ones we do. It's about a 3-year lifespan on the Chromebooks with technology advances and everything. So we'll be purchasing Chromebooks every year for the life of the bond to keep that program up and running. Okay, 21st century furniture. This is our flexible furniture project, and what you see here are pictures of actual furniture that we are purchasing to put in those model classrooms I mentioned. We did purchase a group of furniture that was out at that model classroom on C Street. We realized that wasn't working at all. Not many people were getting out there to try it out. And we sort of purchased everything from kindergarten through high school, and it was just sort of a interesting mix of furniture. So what we did is move that upstairs into the 2nd floor here at the district office. So it's set up to be used for all the training that we bring teachers in here and staff in here, so get some use out of it. But we thought it'd be a better approach with our furniture consultant to get more focused furniture for those 2 model classrooms we have at San Jose and Lou Sutton. So we have a focus at the middle school level and a focus at the elementary school level. So it's slightly different furniture for each, but it's really neat stuff. We've received some of it already, and we're hoping to get the rest of it in the next month or so to utilize those classrooms. We're also still in phase 2 with our furniture consultant. We're hoping to get some more input to come back to you to have a recommended plan forward on what do we do with the approved 21st century furniture project. The initial plan was you give every school site 1/3 of their classrooms gets new furniture. We're not necessarily sure if that's the best approach, so we're using this consultant to help us see if we need to focus more on grade bands and where we could get sort of a better bang for our dollar. And that one is obviously moving out, and we're hoping to get some more information to finalize that in the next year so we can start rolling out over the next couple of years at the sites. Okay, Performing Arts Center, now into the single site projects. This is our biggest one of the bond. What you see here are now pictures of the approved schematic design that you recently approved a couple months ago. Also a rendering of what it could look like. I want to be careful with that because it probably won't look like that, but it's an idea just to give you a vision of that it's a nice new 450-seat balcony style theater that's going to be located on the couple of the tennis courts where the new tennis courts are at Novato High. The current budget you approved for the schematic design is at $25 million. We are currently finalizing detailed design, hoping to get that completed and into DSA for review. And once they approve it, we'll come back to the board for approval to go out to bid. And all things are still on track. We're hoping to start construction summer of 2019. And being this is our biggest project, it will finish middle of January 2021. So, okay. Next project at Novato High is the Center for the Sciences. And again, this one was approved, schematic design, early in the summer, about $13.8 million. You can see the layout there. And again, a rendering of what it could look like. This one is going to go where the existing portables are currently, the math portables at Novato High. We'll be moving those temporarily for a year and then building this there. Again, need to get detailed design completed to get it through DSA, to get it before you to go out to bid. Still on track to get that going this summer again, starting summer 2019. And finishing, this one's a little bit less complicated than the PAC. We're hoping to finish before the start of school, calendar year 2020. And again, the second practice turf field, we have brought this to you, but you requested some more information, so it is not approved at schematic design yet. But again, the schematic design budget is up there at about $2.7 million, and this builds basically a soccer and lacrosse synthetic turf practice field at Novato High. And depending on when you direct us to bring it back or what you want to do, if we get approval in the next month or two, we can still execute that this summer and get it done right around the beginning of school for school year 2019. And just the picture in the upper right is the new field, returfed stadium field at San Marin, but you can see the additional stripes, which would be the same kind of striping minus the football lines, of course, we would put on the field. Lacrosse, girls and boys, and soccer. Okay, and then another maintenance project we did at Novato High was we returfed the stadium field and did some maintenance on the track. Actually, they are finishing tomorrow on the track striping. I was out there today. The field has been done since, I think, the middle of August. What you see there is the completed field, and actually a good picture of what the track used to look like. Didn't realize how bad a shape it was in until you see the new track and go, wow, this is what it's supposed to look like. So great project, on time, on budget, and we're within our approved schematic design budget. Woohoo! All right, got all my fans here tonight. And actually, we'll be opening this, I think, for football practice, possibly over the weekend, and it'll be open for public rental and use after Labor Day weekend, if all goes well. My favorite project, sewer maintenance repairs, near and dear to my heart. All joking aside, we did have a lot of issues at school sites that our maintenance department has been chasing for years. We finally completed a lot of work at Novato High this past summer, and also at Olive, which we had done the summer before. And also the next prioritized work from our maintenance department was San Ramon Elementary School. So we did some replacement of main lines and sewer laterals, and importantly, we also added more additional cleanouts, so ease of maintenance and taking care of some issues. So again, we have a pretty old system at those sites, and we updated it. Again, there's deferred maintenance money, and another one that came in on time and on budget. No clapping for the sewer. I can't believe it. Just kidding. Just kidding. Sorry. I'm a sarcastic kind of guy. You guys will get used to me. So going on to San Marin High School, pretty much following the same type of projects, Performing Arts Center at San Marin. Initially, we were going to do renovation of the existing one, and after a lot of in-depth review and discussion and approval by the board, it was determined the best option was to move forward and demo the existing building and build a new, roughly 7,800 square foot Performing Arts Center, seats about 215 people. We got through schematic design. We're currently in detailed design. What you see is the layout that was presented at schematic design, and again, a rendering of what it could look like. It will be at the same location that the existing one is at. Yeah, sure. No, please.
I know that the number that was originally for this project was a lot lower than that. Can you elaborate on what the first
Sure.
number was?
Originally, it was, in the master plan, it was $2.7 million, around there. We modified that first to $5 million, and then when we really dug into the building, the type of building is a very unique pre-tension kind of octagon-shaped building. It turned out we were up to about, I want to say, $8.5 million for
To redo it.
fixing the existing building, and even with that, it wouldn't get all the needs that the site wanted. So
And if I recall correctly, phase one really only had an evaluation, like a contingent.
correct. It
plan.
initially started as
Like
half a million
$500,000.
to do a study to see what
Right.
we could be
So
done.
originally, this was a phase two project.
Correct. And then through board direction, we've now got it as approved phase one
Okay.
with the budget about $8.2 million. Again, this one's in detailed design. Same process, get it through that and then get it into DSA for approval. And once that come back to you for approval, go out to bid. And again, hoping, and we're on schedule right now to still meet those goals and get it out and start construction summer 2019 for a completion. I think is it still August? I think that was for the renovation. I think it's following the other Novato PAC, it'd be, I apologize, I'll update the slide, it'd be January 2021. Because it's PACs are very unique, complex buildings to build. Involve quite a few trades that most normal buildings do not. Okay, again, San Marin, the STEM building, very similar to Novato. This one approved schematic design budget of $13.8 million. Same things in detailed design. We're marching ahead on schedule to get that through DSA and back to the board for approval to go out to bid and again start construction summer 2019 and complete this one just like Novato's beginning of school 2020. And again, it's a layout and rendering of what was approved at schematic design. Okay, San Marin, second practice turf field. This has no change from last time I reported. Again, we rediscussed with the site and all agreed it was best to hold off and see if there was a need for this once the lights were completed at the stadium. That would obviously extend the amount of practice time that they would have. So we will be starting the lights project. Had a pre-con already and starting next couple weeks and hope to have that done, I think it was November. And then once we have that in place through the winter and spring season, see how that works out and revisit with the site their need for a second practice turf field. Also at San Marin, we did the same thing. We returfed the football stadium and the existing track. And this one is complete. And today was the first day the football team practiced on it. I heard they were excited. They kind of walked real gingerly. It was good for me to see, but I think they got over that and eventually started playing football. So again, it's open for practice. And I just found out today that they did have a home game scheduled, but they moved it to an away game. Some issues with the other school they're playing. So they will practice this week and will be closed except for practice until through the Labor Day weekend, which we'll open it for public rental and public use as well as school use for PE and sports practice. Great contractor, great results. Did a really wonderful job. Interesting how they do the turf and the track surface itself. But again, if you get a chance, I highly recommend you go out there and take a look. It's greatly different than what we had before. And with the striping and painting fresh, it really is a brand new facility. So, and that was also on time and within budget. All right, golf clap, thank you. So the sound system at San Marin, this is also closely integrated with the lights project and also the press box. We're getting a new press box at San Marin with non-bond money, as is the lights non-bond money. We're coordinating that right now, and as the press box gets closer, we're figuring out how to integrate this system into, because the directional speakers will be mounted on the light poles, the main light poles, and the security light poles, and of course the equipment will be housed in the new press box. So we're working closely with those projects to make sure this one goes as expected, and we hope to have this one done. Let's see, press box comes in a couple months. It's ended in November-ish, end of November. We hope to have that completed as well as the press box and the lights. Okay, San Jose Middle School, the project to install air conditioning. This project is almost complete. Have one little minor electrical thing they're fixing tomorrow that won't impact anything, but for the most part, everything went swimmingly well with this project. We removed existing gas furnaces in each room and replaced it with an electric heat pump. And as you can see, to add the cooling capacity, you have to have a condensing unit outside, which is the lower right-hand picture. We had to add some pads and attach the condensing units there, which also required some more electrical runs, which you see the shut-off safety switches and also the conduit there in the lower left. And the unit itself, as neat as it looks, is that box in the upper right. School started and everybody was excited. They had an air conditioning capacity, and of course it was cool temperatures. But of note, this project is not just the cooling capacity, it's also the air exchange. Even if you don't need to cool a room, like right now, if y'all haven't figured out, it's getting a little bit warmer in here and the air is getting a little more staler because we're all breathing. So these units, you're recirculating the air, which is also an added benefit. Even if you're not heating or cooling, you're still recirculating air. And this system actually tracks the carbon dioxide levels in the classroom. So it hits a certain level, fan automatically comes on and refreshes the room. So pretty neat.
And I'm not sure I can have the answer, so maybe Yancy, but if I recall correctly, would I be correct to say this was San Jose's top priority or close to it? Or was it their number one?
Correct.
Okay, so they came back very clear. They wanted AC from day one.
I believe the quote from the previous principal was, if we get anything, we want AC.
Okay.
And this one also came in on schedule and on budget. Sinaloa new gym. This is one of those projects that you approved as a board for phase one. No change from my last update, and it will probably be worked on in the next couple of years as we move forward.
Sorry. Is there a placeholder number for this in the original plan? Was it like 9 million?
I've got an update
Okay.
in the financial section.
Okay.
It's 10.
Okay.
It was to construct, the project was to construct a new gym at a different location than where it's existing. It's not a full-size gym, and it doesn't have the capacity to hold all the students that do PE there, so that was
Just
the,
generally looking at the difference in numbers between San Jose and Sinaloa, it's about 10 million roughly. That's pretty much most of it.
right. 29 million was, I think, Sinaloa, and 19 million was the total for San Jose in the master plan.
Okay. Thanks.
And then getting onto Linwood, the campus renovation, this particular project, and I'll explain in a second, we kind of split it into two. This one, no change. It's still an approved phase one project, but in order to start all of the items you see on this list, we need to remove the fans piece off of Linwood, and that goes to the next project, which is moving fans. And as you know, this sort of had that domino theory where board approved us to move fans off of Linwood to the Olive Street warehouse, and currently maintenance, operation, and transportation are at Olive Street warehouse. So therefore, we'll move maintenance and operations out of that warehouse to a new facility at C Street, and we'll also move grounds off of Novato High onto that same warehouse on C Street, and then we'll renovate the space vacated in the warehouse, and then we'll put the new fans facility in there. So this is sort of the first domino in that whole long line, and it's to build about 11,000 square foot warehouse on C Street. And once we get that done, we've started detailed design. Because this is not on a school site and involves students, it doesn't have to go to DSA. Saves us some time. So we're currently in the design now. And again, since it's a warehouse, those are usually pre-designed certain sizes, so we save some time there as well. Hoping to get that started soon.
To be clear, the buses stay on Olive Street.
Correct, the
Only-
buses,
Only the maintenance operation moves over to, does the bus maintenance yard stay here as well?
yes,
garage?
the transportation, buses, everything, vehicle maintenance, but buses all remains here because of the gas and the storage
Fueling
capacity.
facility, yeah, right,
Correct.
okay. Which is not,
No. So we're hoping to get this out to bid in April and have it finished by, I think, the end of the summer for the warehouse, and then, of course, for the new warehouse at C Street, and then, of course, after that, go in and renovate the existing warehouse at Olive and have that done, I think, by November, December timeframe, into 2018. And then once we get fans relocated, then we'll go back to the previous project I showed you and start getting into that. And one of my favorite projects, the San Ramon roof replacement. This was fun because got to take off a Swiss cheese roof and replace it with something that will actually prevent water from getting inside. So this was a great project. We removed, I believe as Trustee Melrick's described it, should have been replaced 20 years ago. Very old roof, a lot of damage we found, not more than we expected, but there was still, and I think the last rain we had was May. And we took the roof off in, I think, July in places, and it was still wet. So this just tells you how many leaks we had. But removed all that, replaced all the damage, few change orders to replace some additional not structural members, damage in between the pods and some of the drainage things, and put in took out the old roof, which was sort of a built-up asphalt with rock cover roof with just tapered insulation, single membrane. It's called a cool roof. Obviously, it's white, it reflects, and it's cool because it reduces temperature right away just by reflecting a lot of heat instead of absorbing it. A lot of roof, 40,000 square feet. Almost done. We're a little bit over because we had some issues with some materials arriving on site. Basically, everything is done. The AC is reinstalled, up and running. School started on time. No issues with that. The roof is done. We're just waiting on the screening that hides that ugly HVAC equipment that's sitting on top of the roof. So right now we've got the framing for that in, and we're just waiting on the screens themselves. And once those are in, we'll install those, and this project will be done. But very, very neat project. Should see some energy savings out of this as well.
so how far over budget did you, what do I say, hidden conditions when you stripped
So-
off, how much?
We had some contingency, or what do you call them? Allowances, sorry. We had allowances for damages. We did not exceed those within our
Okay.
estimated allowances. We did have some other change orders that were outside our initial scope, but they're good things to do. in
Structural
Purdue.
improvements, better, right?
Sure. And then just to focus on some other work we did this summer that we're doing now that was non-bond funded, but stuff we did. Again, we had some maintenance issues over the years with the 2 gym floors at the high school. So we're able to refinish. Those are not brand-new floors. Those are the same floor that was there. We just sanded it down and resurfaced it with a little different painting scheme. If you get a chance, check those out. Those came out really well. Again, the press box at San Marin, not a bond-funded. We're also currently almost done with the exterior painting at Linwood School. They had a lot of challenges. We initially started to do some spot painting repairs, and as we looked at it, it got worse and worse and turned into we need to do the whole school to do it right. So we're almost finished with that. That's looking really good. We did some paving work at the charter school. They had some potholes that trucks wouldn't drive over. Fixed some of those. And also bridges. Sinaloa is a beautiful campus, middle school. Has a couple bridges across the kind of river that runs through it. And those were in need of replacement, and we've already replaced one, and I think we're working on our second one here. But those projects we did as well we're working on now, and just let you know we're doing other things, just not bond related. So with that, happy to answer any more questions you might have, or
Questions from the board? Okay, Trustee Cooper and then Trustee Aguila.
Mike, I just wanted to say thank you for the presentation, but I
Pleasure.
was on the Citizens Oversight Committee tour we went on last week, and I just want to say we made a lot of good improvements, and a lot of these improvements not only preserve and protect our schools, they're going to lower our operating costs, like the white roof at San Ramon, and so I think overall they were extremely happy with everything you've been doing. So,
Thank you.
Nice.
Good to know.
Trustee Aguila?
So I want to thank you for all the work that has been done. I know it hasn't been easy, and a lot of it has been done on time, on schedule. And it's just frustrating to me that the state's not giving us funding for any facility work. And so the more we communicate that to the community, and the more people will understand. But it's just frustrating, and I think all of us we feel the same way. But there are a couple of things that only as reading through this, it's clear to us, board, because we're familiar with it. But there's some things that, and I would ask you or show you where, but pages are not numbered, so it's hard to show you. But throughout this report, and you've done a wonderful job, but however, the report, it's hard to be honest with you, it's hard to understand for those who are new to this, and it's not clear as far as, and I'm sure you can fix it, if you can let us know. It's a little misunderstand. There's a misunderstanding because it shows the faces of the bond, but then it also shows the process of the projects, and you're calling that phases. So there may be a misunderstanding there. But also throughout the report, it's not clear if it's been done or if it's in the process of being done. So
Okay.
if maybe you can somehow come back with a.
Sure, I can definitely provide more details. The projects that are done, basically, we did 5 this summer that will be completed within the next week or so. That's the 2 returf fields at the high schools, the air conditioning at San Jose, the roof at San Ramon, and then the sewer maintenance projects.
And also, if you can just let us know,
Sure.
like if it was that, and also if it's on budget, or did you have to go over budget, or if we are okay with that? Because
Okay,
it's not clear.
I think at the next time I come back to the board to present a facility update, I'll have a few more details, and I'll make it clear. I'll definitely number the pages, sorry about that.
Please.
So that it's not just the board, but the public as well
Right.
could follow along.
But other than that, I think you guys are doing a great job, and thank you for the work.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Trustee Millerick, this is just on the current projects that
Yeah.
were,
Couple of clarifications on the page titled San Marin High School STEM Building. Could you flip to that
I sure can.
so we can all see it? Perfect. So could you help me orient that building on the campus?
Sure. So
I mean, yeah.
the center corridor of San Marin High School that kind of winds through with the trees would be right here. This is South Novato Boulevard behind the trees, and then the road to the softball fields back here. The road to the back of campus goes right along here.
So is that footprint on top of the existing library, or
Actually,
in the
it's-
space behind those are portables up there, I guess? There's
There's a couple portables, and there's a covered storage area.
Yeah,
And the portables we move to the other portables on the outdoor basketball courts. And then the storage we'll find a home for, and then tear down and build new right there.
okay, so where the portables are that are closest to the tennis courts, those portables,
Correct.
right across the street from the Gary Gates Field and the tennis courts, we're probably right across the street from Gary Gates Field, those are the portables that would go away, and this would take up that space plus more, which means there's some dirt stored on that parcel you gotta haul away.
Right. Actually, we were just discussing this week, we're talking about the elevation, how high to build this
Yeah.
to minimize the amount of dirt we have to take away. And we believe, I forget the exact elevation, but I think it maximizes everything stays on site, except for a little bit we have to take off, instead of the mounds of dirt we would have to take off.
Well, okay, so we saved money by not hauling that away. It was some operational person's great scheme to pile the dirt up instead of take it to the dump like it was planned. So it wouldn't bother me if you designed it to optimize the use of the campus, not to minimize the haul
Well, it still fits.
material. Because that compromise we already made in.
Sure, and we're not,
weird.
great point, thanks for bringing it up. We're definitely not compromising the aesthetic appearance of the campus. We're trying to kind of cap off the end, if you will, of this campus. And the elevation, I think it might indicate a few more steps than what we had before, 3 more steps higher, but still would be the end to that beautiful middle part of the
Yeah.
campus.
It might make it better, but just
Sure,
go for design, don't go for cheap,
we're not.
which was the prior model. Okay, the second one, no, I can't find it. It was one more, so, Matt, well, I gotta find the slide. If somebody else has a question.
I'll just take a moment to thank Mike on this process. You've been great in presenting the information to the board since you've begun our bond projects. It's a lot of moving parts. We're well aware of that, and you've done a great job, and you've given us updates during the summer. We knew exactly what was happening with the projects and where we were at, so appreciate that very much.
Thank you, my
Yeah.
pleasure.
One other, I think it's a couple of slides before that shows the Nevada High School Center for the Sciences. Yes, that one. So just orient those buildings that are purple and green and turquoise. Is that where the current portables are?
Correct. This is the maintenance yard grounds,
Right.
and this is the yard they have,
Yeah,
and then this is the math portables.
okay, so, and the maintenance building, is that gonna stay, or since we're moving them out to C Street, is that going away?
The plan is to demo that once they move out, and then have it open to hopefully design the back part here, the approach into the back, and then, of course, there are some options
I
about
mean,
parking.
It feels like you're coming through somebody's junkyard.
Correct. Sanford and Son is moving to.
Yeah, there you go. That's the model. That's the. Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure it was clear where that was on the campus.
Sure.
Thank you, Madam President.
Yep. All right, if there's no more questions, comments on the current projects, we'll move on to the financing update of the bond, which is, I think, going to be a key presentation for this board.
I'm getting you to your slide, I promise. Almost there.
This will give us a chance to see what things were costing in the facility master plan and comparing to what they're costing today, so, and then our financing of the bond.
I'm not as cool as Mike, and I won't be using the microphone here. So thank you. I will get into the financing portion of the evening. So an important thing to note on the project, and what a lot of community members might ask is, we approved a $222 million bond. Why can't we just go out tomorrow and issue $222 million of bonds? And that really reflects 2 limitations that are put on school districts. The first is an overall bonding capacity limitation, and that is 2.5% of the assessed value within the school district. It's important to note that if that was the only limitation on our bond issuance, we could actually issue the entire 222. We could have issued it immediately. What limits us is the second limiting factor, which is under Proposition 39, which approved 55% bond elections, which almost every bond in the state of California is approved on now, has a limitation of the repayment of those bonds be limited to $60 per $100,000 of assessed value within the community. And so with that limitation, our $222 million has been broken up into 4 separate issuances. I call this the Tetris graph, and it really works. Our financial advisors work to how to structure the 4 issuances in order to get us the money that we need in the most efficient way and the fastest we can. So this is our current plan of issuance. This is our original plan of issuance, which had the first issuance in 2017, the second issuance in 2020, the third issuance in 2022, and the last issuance in 2025. Each of those issuances was somewhere between $50 to $60 million, equaling the entire $222 million. Our current bond issuance schedule has changed a little bit. The first obviously was the same at the $50,375,000 that was issued in 2017. We have moved up by a couple of months the Series B from 2020 to 2019 because, as Mike noted before, we have a lot of projects scheduled for the summer of 2019, and that's when the cash flow is really going to start moving. Series C and Series D, we don't have an official date on those, and that relates to that $60 per 100,000 of limitation. It is our hope that we will be able to issue Series C in 2021, but as of right now, it's 2021 or 2022, depending on the increase in our assessed value over the next couple of years. As well, Series D could be 2024 or 25. Why I noted that it could be either year. If you see our updated plan of issuance, you see the line at the top is the $60 per 100,000 of assessed value, and you see almost all of those repayments are almost up to that level. So if we don't meet at least the 4% assessed value growth in the next 2 to 3 years, it'll move back to the original 2022-2025 issuance schedule. Sorry, one just takeaway from this is that we can only do $103,750,000 of work prior to 2021 because that next issuance of $56 million there that's scheduled in 2021 or 2022 won't be available until then to pay for those projects. You've seen this list a little bit before, although it's in a little bit more detail and a little bit harder to see. So these are the list of those 18 projects that Mike went over earlier. But these also include the original facilities master plan estimate. And so all of the projects totaled about $108 million. If you look at the far column, the approved SD or updated budgets on that, so that's our most current budgets on these projects. We have a budget of $131 million for those projects. So that's an additional $23 million that was not in the facilities master plan. And due to factors that Superintendent Hogaboom noted around escalation of the projects, especially related to the fires and other construction-related increases.
Has that number's grown from the last time you gave us?
That number has grown since the last
It
time.
was 15 million is what I had noted.
Yes,
Over.
yes, it
Right.
has
Now we're at
increased.
23.
Yeah,
Okay. So, yes, trustees. Do you mind if we ask some questions?
One more question.
absolutely.
That 19 pull, when are you estimating that might occur?
So that'll
Response
likely occur late in 2019.
Late into 19?
Yeah, we were going to issue early in 2020, and then so we moved it up a few months to the late fall of 2019. It could be 2020 if, depending on where we are, but if we hit our current schedules, then our cash flow shows that we will need to make that issuance in late 2019.
Is that the earliest we can hit that pull?
It's the earliest we would need the money, so I wouldn't
Okay.
recommend
All right.
going out any earlier than that. If you've looked at earlier those large budget projects, especially at the two high schools, the STEM, the Center for the Sciences, and the two performing arts centers, that is a huge chunk of the first phase of projects, and those start in the summer of 2019, really ramping up, and so those bills really come due starting in the fall in a lot of ways. So.
Trustee Miller?
So to be clear, even if it grows from 107 to 131, the bonding capacity overall, it'll delay the project maybe because we have to wait until we can cash in, actually sell the bonds on the bond market and get the cash to pay the contractors. But we could still choose to do all this phase one. We could choose.
Yeah.
The issue is going to be, we have a hard cap of 222 million. So any money spent here is taken away from projects that would be in phase two. And it's not that those projects will be delayed, it's those projects wouldn't be funded and wouldn't be built.
Yeah, they would need additional funding, whether that be from other sources or from a potential future bond issuance,
Or-
10
right.
plus years
But,
away.
Yeah, 10 plus years away, because by your own schedule, you have to pay these off before you can go out and ask the community, because you can't get past the 60 per 100,000.
Absolutely.
So, okay, so in terms of project trade-off conversations, we really need to see all the projects in phase two as well as this. I assume that's going to be later in the slide deck.
So, thank you. You couldn't have teed it up better for me. Thank you. I appreciate it. So, the next slide has all the additional phase two bond projects that will be looked at. As of right now, the facilities master plan budget for those projects is 107 million or 108 million, just south. Sorry, I was on the wrong slide. So if you take our budgets for the first phase projects of 131, you add the facilities master plan numbers from phase two of 107 million, your total is 238 million and change. Given our measure G is 222 million, there are already $16 million of the projects listed in phase two here that likely would have to wait until another funding source is identified. And I think it's just important to note that if you assume that there's going to be at least equal escalation in these costs as there are in the phase one costs, you're looking at that $16 million number increasing to about $35 million.
Trustee Cooper?
Can you go back to the previous slide for 1 second? Just for clarification, or that slide right there. So just clarification, the totals on the bottom right, the two columns, 107.8 and 131, 257.32. The delta between those is due to increased construction cost.
That's the primary driver of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that,
But that's not the only thing. I mean, the biggest increases, if you look at it, were the original estimate for the Novato High Performing Arts was 18.9, and that went up to 25 million because we needed to do that right. And then the other big one was Marin Performing Arts went from 2.8 to 8. So it wasn't all just escalated costs. It was, things that came up that we needed to, take into consideration.
I'm just trying to get an idea, a sense of, I mean, that's obviously gone up, part of it. Thank you for that clarification, but part of it is due to the escalation of cost, but that's probably going to creep. Thank you.
All right. For the math people, which I appreciate, the question could come up that, okay, you noted Yancey Phase 1 projects of $131 million, yet you just told me that the issuance of Series A and Series B bonds is 107, hold on.
107.
It's about $107 million. So what's the difference there? So these are the projects that are currently completed, scheduled to be completed before 2021. This is basically that full list that you saw 2 pages ago with 3 things that have been delayed. The first of which is some of the deferred maintenance projects that have been approved aren't scheduled to be performed in the first 4 years of the issue of the bond project, and that mostly has to do with age of roofs or HVAC equipment or other things that are scheduled to be done elsewhere in the project. But the larger things that will be delayed past 2021 right now are the Linwood project. That has a lot to do with having to move off the food service facility and get all those things settled before. and as well as the Sinaloa Gym. The Sinaloa Gym will be waiting till at least 2021, and that's really due to the scope of that project and the size, and given where it fell in the rankings of the bond implementation process, that has moved. So of the $131 million of projects, we obviously can't finish all of those by 2021. Because we don't have enough dollars.
Even if you hire 1 million construction workers, your cap is cash.
Your cap is cash, and it's at $60 per $100,000 of assessed value. So this is kind of a graphical representation. The first two lines are the cash inflows, which are the Series A issuance and the Series B issuance. And then each of the other waterfall as we go down are the individual projects that are to be completed by 2021. And as you note, that zero line, that dark line, is basically where we go to zero in cash, and we cannot do anything. From a cash flow, we have $103,750,000. Sorry, I misspoke earlier when I said $107 million. $103,750,000, and all the projects will bring it down to zero, and actually a little bit below zero. And the key point is, if we do want to change any of our prioritization right now of projects to be done before 2021, then one of these or multiple of these projects will have to be delayed outside to after 2021. So with that, I'm happy to open it up to questions.
Questions? This is about the financing. So Trustee Millerick and then Trustee Mack.
So tell me if this is the appropriate time for this conversation. Projects that would fall into phase 2, like the upgrade of the multipurpose room, so every multipurpose room has a separated stage, the upgrade of the facilities at the middle school, so there's music facilities or performing arts facilities, so all of our elementary schools can feed into the MSA program, where now some don't really have the facilities, so their students can compete. Are those aren't in this before 2021 conversation. Those are all the after 2021 conversation. Is that a correct statement?
That is correct.
Okay, so we'll take it up when we get to that point. Okay, thanks.
Trustee Mack.
Really quick, the $25 million for the Novato PIC, does that include the $1 million orchestra pit or not?
As of right now, in schematic design, we've included that, but the initial estimate, including the orchestra pit and the additional arts display gallery space, in that is included, and our estimate was about $27 million. When we included those both, we are working on the design development, and if we can work through and get those two things at $25 million, we will move forward with that. If not, we will bring it back and likely have one or two of those things having to be either changed or removed from the project.
Got it, thanks.
Anything else? We're going to move on to the next section. Okay. The next one is the future bond project prioritization process.
All right. So Superintendent Hogeboom did a great job of going through the facilities master planning process and the first bond implementation committee that met in 2016 and 2017 to help the board prioritize the projects. But where do we go from here? Trustee Millerick noted, the phase 2 projects and how would those get prioritized. So our current plan for that is in the fall of 2019, that we go through a smaller facilities master planning process, really a review of the previous process, confirming all the projects on the list to see that those still make sense by site, and then also considering additional projects and weighing those against the projects that are currently on the facilities master plan, bringing that back to the board for their review and approval. And then in the spring of 2020, convening the bond implementation committee again to prioritize the remaining projects. As I noted before, there's $107 million of additional projects to be prioritized. Of that, somewhere between, we know that 16 million of those will be delayed past likely this bond program altogether, and maybe up to 30+ million of those projects may be delayed. So that bond implementation committee will, I'm sure, be very, there'll be lots of active discussion, and but we'll bring that forward. You'll likely ask me the question, so I'll just get it out of the way to that. If what would you do about looking at additional projects for inclusion in the facilities master plan and in prioritization? My recommendation would be to continue our current prioritization process, which included the bond implementation committee's work in 2017 and would move forward into 2019-20 bond implementation and facilities master plan review update. Two of the projects that have continued to raise some community interest, and we've heard it at the board meetings, and I know that there is obviously some significant interest, is air conditioning projects as well as athletic fields at the high schools. And so with that, Mike Woolard brought back some data for the board a few months ago around the temperatures in the classroom, and he did such a good job that there was, I think, almost too much data to look at. And so we went back and we looked at different weeks, and we were able to categorize our schools really into three different buckets to kind of simplify the data. You've got our Tier 1 schools, which included Loma Verde, Linwood, Olive, and San Jose, where we just did the air conditioning project. You had kind of your Tier 2 schools, which were at least another standard deviation away in terms of temperature, which include the Hill Education Center, Lou Sutton, Novato High School, and Rancho. And then obviously the Tier 3 schools, where we have a lot more control over due to the air conditioning at those sites, as well as all the portables at all the sites listed in the Tier 1 and Tier 2. And this really matches, for the most part, our facilities master planning process that went on in 2015-16. Of the Tier 1 schools listed here, 3 of the 4 schools had prioritized that to their final listing, and Olive actually had it on the list, but had cut it down when we moved from $500 million of need to $222 million of need. And of the Tier 2 schools, only Novato High had included air conditioning as one of their prioritized needs, and the rest of them had not included air conditioning as part of their needs in the facilities master planning process. In terms of costs, there's 2 things that I think are important to note in terms of cost. What are the real costs of air conditioning each site? So this is the list of the non-air conditioned sites and the approximate cost to do each. And then on the right is the what's currently in the facilities master plan. And so obviously some of the projects, an average elementary school cost a little bit over 1.25 million, a little north of that. Middle school's a little less than 2.5, and about $3 million for high school. Looking at that, it's the second part that I think is important is what is in the facilities master plan right now. That's what's on the right. And so if we add additional projects to the list, I think it's important to note that some of the projects don't have a budget currently. So that would be in addition to the $107 million in phase 2 needing to be prioritized projects. The second is synthetic turf fields and athletic fields in general at the high school. As Mike noted earlier, we have done the replacement of the turf fields, stadium fields at both of the high schools. One thing that Mike didn't note was that those fields were roughly 12 years old right now, and the expected useful life is anywhere from 8 to 10 years on those sites. And as they move forward, as Terra Linda High School very well knows, safety concerns can actually close down those fields. So that was an important project to move forward with. The The fields that are included in Phase 1 already are the two secondary turf fields at both the high school. We brought the Novato High School schematic design back, or for schematic design for approval, I believe in November or December of 2017. The board had asked for some additional information, including a 10-year plan at Novato for different options. And so that is included in those 10-year plans, and it is actually included in the same spot in all of the different options, that second turf field. What's not currently in the facilities master plan, which you've heard definitely some community input on, is the needs for upgrades in the baseball and softball fields at the high schools. And just to kind of go over what are some basic cost options on there. I mean, you can kind of read through these. These are general cost options, but I think just a good number to use if you're going to build a new synthetic turf baseball and softball fields at both high schools, you're looking at $8 to $9 million is about the estimate. I noted earlier that 10-year plan at Novato High School, potential options of what we can do. So this is just a listing of those potential costs and the additional costs. All the costs show the additional notes, the $2.7 million that was already approved by the board for the secondary turf field, and then what other additions would cost to go through the different options there. So with that, I open it up to questions from the board.
Question on the prioritization process that we currently have in place and anything? Nope, okay. Everybody's good? All right. Do you have one more thing to add or no?
No, I thought you
Okay.
were going back to the slide, so I'm
No,
good.
I'm just asking about that particular section. So we have no comments from the board, so I'm going to turn it over to the public, and we'll get, if the board's good with that, we'll hear our public comment from the community. So, and then I'll come back to the board. Do you have something, Trustee Miller, before we get started? I want you to have that opportunity
I just
before.
want to make sure that this is well framed, so when I look at, so let me ask some questions. The future bond project prioritization process. So in the fall of 2019, which is, so the plan for right now is to continue with what we've already approved in Phase 1.
Yes.
The next time that we would reconvene the facilities master planning committee, and they would meet a year from now, fall of 19, not fall of 18.
Fall of 19, yes.
Fall of 19, and go over the projects for all schools, starting probably with our original list from the bond, that big report we did. And then in the fall of 19, identify adjustments and updates. That committee would do that. And then the recommendations for that committee would go before the community and the public and this board, and we would adjust them and accept them, I assume. And then in the spring of 2020, convene, what's the BIC?
The Bond Implementation Committee again.
Oh, the Bond Implementation Committee. Oh, okay, so I'm trying to figure out, when do we reset the list? That's
So
what I'm trying to figure out. So could you help me?
The list would be reset by the end of 2019, calendar 2019. And by spring of 2020, the updated prioritization would be completed and gone before the board.
Which would reflect what we knew about financial constraints at that point.
Yes.
So this is like a 2-year process that you're describing here.
From right now, in 2 years, the process will take a year from next fall, yes.
Thank you very much for the clarification.
Okay, so let's move on to public comment. I have I have 12 cards. One of them does say Novato baseball team, you guys. If you're gonna have more than, are you gonna have multiple speakers with that? Okay, so just wanna keep that in mind. So we have a good, probably 40, 45 minutes of public comment. So each person gets 3 minutes, timer's right there. If you go over, I will give you a warning, you've gone over, but really stick to that 3 minutes, because I might just cut you off, to be honest with you. But I'll try to make sure your point is cleared, you're able to state it. if for some reason you filled out a blue card and we're going along here and you're like, gosh, that person made my point, I really don't need to speak, just say you'll pass on your comment and we'll move along to the next person. That's all I ask. So I'm going to name off the first three speakers. Come up right here and go ahead and begin your what you'd like to say and state your name, please. So I have Heather Smith, Hillary Grady, and Dawn Weir, excuse me. And if I've wrecked your last name, I apologize in advance. And if you haven't filled out a blue card and you want to speak, they're right over here at the cart. Bring it up to Sally, and I will put you into the list. So again, I have Heather Smith and Hillary Grady and Dawn Weir.
Hi again, I'm Heather Smith. The first time my daughter came home sick from heat-related illness was in spring of 2017. She was 6 years old and in first grade. She was pale and vomiting in the garbage can of her classroom. Sadly, this wasn't the only time I had to pick her up due to heat-related illness. It happened again in the fall of second grade. Both times I picked her up, took her home to air conditioning and got her cooled down. Both times she was as good as new within 30 minutes. Due to this, I had to make a very tough decision to transfer my child out of Olive. I didn't want to take her away from her friends and her school she loved, but I had to think of her health and safety. She's one of the lucky ones. Not everybody has the ability to transfer schools like she did. Families are limited by transportation or by jobs. There's also 2 MCOE special day classes where students with Down syndrome and other severe disabilities have to suffer through extreme temperatures. These children are even more sensitive to heat than my daughter. No child should suffer the way my daughter did. Not when we have a bond that was passed to be used on facilities. $33 million on 2 performing arts buildings should not be a priority over health, safety, and education of our students. I urge you to really pay close attention to who is on the bond implementation committee and note how many representatives each school had. Olive only had 1, the principal. Let me again remind you of Assembly Bill 1292, School Facilities, Air Quality, Section 5, 17591.5, which falls under Article 1, Duties of a Governing Board of the Education Code. Quote, a school district shall ensure that facilities including but not limited to classrooms for pupils have heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems that meet the minimum requirement of indoor air quality regulations enacted pursuant to Section 142.3 of the Labor Code in order to prevent pupils from being exposed to poor indoor quality conditions. I hope that you would agree that having children throwing up and nearly passing out due to heat would be considered poor indoor air quality conditions. NUSD is not in compliance with this education code. I have spoken with several members of the California State PTA Board of Managers about our situation, and they are in full support of our initiative. They are guiding me on next steps, which could include contacting Disability Rights California. I assure you that even though I am no longer a parent at Olive, I am not giving up. I would like to also point out that I am aware that there are 3 of you who have terms that are ending, and there are 5 people who are running for those 3 seats. I know you have the ability to reprioritize these projects. I am paying close attention to how you proceed, and so is the rest of the community. Thank you.
Hi. Good evening. I'm Hillary Grady. I'm a parent at Olive Elementary, and like Heather, I have concerns over the decisions about the spending towards Olive, specifically around the air conditioning. And while I'm a parent at Olive, I do realize I'll be a middle school parent and a high school parent in the future. So I am here to speak about Olive, but I am concerned about the care and equality for every student at every school. Performance suffers when temperatures reach over 80 degrees, 90 degrees. Students and staff are hot, sweaty, and become exhausted. The energy and enthusiasm towards concentration and learning are sacrificed by the energy spent to just stay comfortable. It has been argued that it is not hot enough at Olive to have AC. If school is canceled, which it was last year because it was too hot, we have proof that it indeed is too hot. Educational impact is a #1 priority in the developmental criteria. If school is canceled, it is a direct educational impact. Any of the new facilities being built will include AC, as it is considered a necessity. A classroom is a primary learning space for students. A performance arts center, as example, is a secondary learning space. 2 of the 5 core values of the district are caring and equity. Installing AC in a new facility before installing an existing one does not seem equal or fair, and it definitely does not display the same level of care for the well-being of students. The climate is the same district-wide. Why is it too hot for certain schools but not Olive? Do certain schools and students deserve superior conditions over other schools and students? I came here tonight to try to understand that. And after learning about the funds going to Linwood Elementary School, I'm a little bit boggled because Linwood and Olive are an apples-to-apples comparison for needs and for air conditioning. And after learning a little bit more and speaking to some of the parents, it's my understanding that Olive was misrepresented originally with the priority. We have the same needs as Linwood. The needs were acknowledged and recognized initially, we see that, but they were pushed aside when the final budget was determined. You know what's required, and you have a responsibility to be fair and use your best judgment. It doesn't matter if it was 1 or 100 people advocating for Olive. There needs to be that higher level that steps in and says what is fair, because that is one of your core values. Thank you.
Before you get started, I'll announce the next 3 speakers. Is Matt Elkins, Eleni, God, I did this last time. I can't pronounce your last name. Eleni, she's the softball coach at San Marin, at Novato High, and then the softball team, which I'm assuming is the Novato High softball team. So those are the next 3 speakers.
Right. Okay, sorry. Hi, my name is Don Weir. I'm a parent of a sophomore at Novato High School. I want to thank you for your time tonight. Reason I'm here is to speak to the need for field repair at Novato High School, specifically the baseball, softball program. I know you have it in there for the practice field, the secondary field, whatever you want to call it, but I'd urge you to also include the baseball and softball fields. If you compare them to the rest of the county, last year was my first year seeing the other high schools because my son was a freshman. Our field is well behind the rest of the county, and it's only getting worse. My kid, is going there now. He's like, Dad, the grass is a foot tall. The other kids are going, how do you guys even play on this? Stuff like that. He's not inspired by the conditions. There's gopher holes. It's a constant drainage issue, constant rainouts, even though it rained like 5 days ago. Our parent group puts countless hours into trying to maintain the field, keep it up, get it game ready, and it's a losing battle. You're allocating the money to fix the field, do the next step you're making the funds to fix the secondary field, fix the baseball and softball fields while you're at it. It just makes sense. I'm not gonna go on and on about stuff. It's good for the kids. It puts them on an even keel, an even playing field with the rest of the county. And they are falling behind in that respect. So give back to the kids in that respect. And I urge you to please consider updating the fields. Thank you.
So I have Matt up next. Is Matt not here?
Yeah, he's right there.
Oh,
Madam President.
you want to get up? You're next.
You want to go first? Yeah. Can they go, Madam President? It's all part. You want
Yeah.
to go?
No, it's fine.
Is that okay with you?
That's fine.
All right. They're going to do a comparison.
Hi, I'm Jack. I'm a junior at Novato High, and I'm the pitcher for the Novato High baseball team. Before we talk about Novato High's field, I would like to talk about some of the other fields around the county. Starting with TAM. TAM has a turf infield, a grass outfield. It's rodent controlled, full preseason, and in tournaments can run out the field.
Next is Terra Linda to compare it to. It's successfully maintained throughout the year, a full grass field, playable when Novato is not. Our fall ball work will be done at Terra Linda because we can't use our field. Also, with Stanner Fell, they will have a new infield for the upcoming season, and they also get to use a professional baseball stadium for games at Albert Park.
Hi, I'm Hunter Gray. Marin has 2 fields that they can play on. Their practice field is about in the same condition as our Novato field, and I just transferred from Marin to Novato. I can tell you those 2 fields, their practice and our real game field, they're both in bad condition and easily comparable if you just look at both of them. They also have a total super nice baseball practice facility that's new. It's like 3 times the size of our just little cage. And also Marin Catholic, they have whole turf fields, super nice. Whenever you go there, you're super excited, and year-round play. So.
Hi, I'm Tasso Foster. I'm a junior at Novato High. Petaluma High has 1 field, all grass, and it's maintained for tournaments through the partnership with Athletic Edge. Redwood High has 2 fields, 1 turf, and it's year-round all play for preseason 2. Branson right now is playing at College of Marin because at the start of 2019 they're getting a brand new turf field that's year-round to play, and it's all funded by a bond measure.
And there's Drake High School, which has a 100% turf field. They can play year-round there. And there's Casa Grande High School, which has 2 fields. Both are year-round play, all grass, and they're maintained with the partnership with Athletic Edge.
Now that we have talked about all the other fields, I'd like to go back to Novato. Novato has 1 field that houses 3 teams. We cannot have a preseason at Novato. No adequate district maintenance, parent maintenance, severe rodent problem, severe drainage problem, safety challenged. It's the oldest non-updated field in MCAL. It's not code compliant. It's not rentable. It's the only natural surface sport, along with softball, that is ignored by Measure G, and it could easily be condemned. Thank you.
Did you get my videos today?
Yes.
The information provided was interesting. I would love to see it in a written spreadsheet as opposed to an oral comment.
Sure.
So we can follow it through.
Yeah.
So if you guys can put that together and get it to the superintendent, that'd be great.
1 page would be good of just each school
Nice
site, what
matrix study.
you presented.
Fantastic, thank you for that. So the decision to returf the field at Novato High School must be made now. After the 2 years the subject has been commented upon, discussed, studied, and investigated, it is time to admit that no decision to move forward with placing as much importance on baseball as has been bestowed upon football, soccer, lacrosse, and basketball undermines some of the central goals of Measure G. That includes bringing facilities up to code and reducing the use of natural resources. Now, I've already shared with you national standards for high school baseball fields that NHS does not come close to meeting. In fact, by those standards, the field should probably be, as Jack said, condemned. And I'm serious. For those of you who actually visited the field, and I appreciate that very much, it's even worse now. Hundreds of gopher mounds, mud swamps from poor drainage, even in August, make the field unequivocally unsafe and unusable. This is a field that has not been refurbished since the 70s. Now, history is important. As promising and arduous a process that Measure G was and is, it does have some flaws. Now, unfortunately, I've had to study it obsessively, and this is what I found, and it's just the Cliff Notes version, but it's all process related. A bunch of dots confirm that the site committee at the high school definitely wanted new athletic turf. However, they were not asked which fields. They thought that might come later in the process. Regrettably, hindsight is 20/20 for a few of the people here tonight who were site participants. At that time, without a baseball coach, an AD, or even an alert parent or booster, there was no lobbying on behalf of baseball. And nowhere in the Measure G language or process were directives given to actually inspect facilities for code issues or even general need. Why not? Is that not a reasonable expectation for due diligence? Is this not taxation without full representation or even equity? Had that occurred, there is no way we'd be here tonight at the 11th hour. Instead, the ultimate decision to ignore baseball was one of complacency, the easy rubber stamp approval of a soccer field plan that had been bandied about for years, but with no available funding until Measure G. In the mind of previous admins who ultimately directed that decision, it was the path of least resistance. It drowned out the admitted personal knowledge that the baseball facility was in trouble. Ironically, those very same admins are no longer here, having initiated this gross oversight and leaving others behind, including your student constituency, to fix it. We aren't going anywhere. For you, on the other hand, great change is ahead. Turnover in many of your seats is imminent and will disrupt this process should it not be completed now. And let me be candid. It does not happen tonight. We know it will never happen. And that a legacy of this group will be the closure of the baseball field and possibly the entire program. Baseball should not be expelled because it was late for class. Sometimes you have to look at who its parents are to understand the source of the problem. And I promise you this effort will not end tonight, but there are few, if any, avenues to take if this board can't come together while it can and do the right thing and do it right now. Thank you.
Okay, Eleni, yeah, sorry, and the softball team, I apologize for that. I cut you off. And
That's all right. Come on, girls, you can come with me.
come on, support your coach.
Okay, thank you everyone for your time. I'm Eleni Katsaros. I'm a proud NUSD teacher. I teach at Marin, and it's my third year coaching at Novato High. I myself played on the NHS field over 15 years ago, and I can say that not much has changed. I'm mainly here to advocate for my girls and for their future. As a community at NHS, we've discussed the benefits of using our bond to create turf fields for all our athletic facilities. Just to highlight some of the major problems turf will solve: maintenance. I understand in comparison to other fields, we don't have the years of parent volunteers to maintain our field year-round, and unfortunately, year-round maintenance is not something that can be maintained by the district. So we're left to do what we can with the volunteers that we have. Pride. Our program has greatly declined from back in my day, and some could say it's because we play on a field that's hard to be proud of. Inviting teams to play at Novato High can honestly be an embarrassment, and when you come from such a beautiful district, our field does not represent us as it should. Most importantly, number 3, safety. Gopher holes, mangled dugouts, a rough and unclear warning track, our famous sinkhole. While this was caused by another source, it did find its way into our left field, and while we laugh about these things because, let's face it, they've always been the running joke around here, at the end of the day, our girls are getting hurt, and it's affecting everything from the individual, the team, the coaches, the parents, the entire community that comes and takes part in the use of our field, and it should not be allowed to continue without proper attention. Now, thank you.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Rome, and I'm a 4-year member and 2-year captain of the Novato High softball team. I'm going to try and keep this as less repetitive as possible. Throughout the years and time that I've spent on the field, I have come to the conclusion that our field is dangerous, unregulated, and frankly embarrassing. Just last year, our season was forced to be pushed back due to a major sinkhole that was big enough to fit our whole team inside in the middle of our outfield. This sinkhole was cause of many years of neglect and a problem with our plumbing system. The same plumbing system that flooded our pitching mound right before our big cross-rival game and forced us to move that back as well. Our field is 20 plus years old and is no shape to play on, especially compared to our rival Marin, who has a major field that has surround sound, lights, and an insulated snack shack, while our dugout is not even up to ADA standards and is not legal to play on. My sophomore year, our right fielder went out to field a ball and stepped in a hole that ultimately broke her ankle. These are just some of the issues that have occurred on the field, and if it is now not fixed now, these issues will continue to occur. This is unacceptable and should not be happening. We are very proud of our team and our school, and we should not and we should be able to play on a field that reflects that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next three is Claire Tyler, Tom Callahan, and Chris Carter.
Hi, my name is Claire Tyler. I'm an Olive mom of 2 girls, and I'm also in healthcare. As you can see, I didn't have time to change today. In healthcare, we're constantly triaging. We're looking at patients, and we're assessing their needs. And when you have more needs than you have resources, you help the people with the greatest needs first. What we're asking for at Olive is a basic physiological need for our students. You can't focus in a classroom where you're overheated. The staff can't focus, the teachers can't focus, and the students can't focus. I know this wasn't on our original list of needs, but when you triage, you constantly reassess. If you look at the changes in climate that have happened, even since 2016, when this originally came up, we can all agree, temperatures are getting hotter, things are changing. I think we need to reassess, we need to triage, and we need to add AC for Olive on the list of things that are needed. Thank you for your consideration.
So I just noticed you had a non-agenda public comment on both of your cards. So incorporate it into to your conversation if you could
Perfect, I
in your
appreciate
comments.
that.
That'd be great.
Thank you. Good afternoon, or good evening, rather. My name's Tom Callahan. I'm the father of 3 here in Novato, high school, middle school, elementary school. I cover all the bases here for everybody. I'm also a member of the Novato Lacrosse Club, where we work with about 300 kids throughout the community in the fastest growing sport out there, that of lacrosse. And I'm here just to urge the board to fast track what they possibly can as it relates to additional turf fields, including fields for baseball as well, because it's an important part of kind of our culture and here at Novato. The reason I bring that up is because we just simply, as many have already said, we just do not have the facilities available in this community to fit all the various sports, whether it's soccer, football, and these are girls and boys sports and many of these things, so you double up on that. You look around the Marin and some of the communities that I travel to as part of the lacrosse program, you see a lot of facilities, a lot of money poured into this, and we just simply have not made that a priority here at Novato. You look at availability, it's difficult to get fields here at Novato. You look at the condition of these fields, and they're outrageous. As somebody who tries to schedule and look for fields, I spend more time hearing parents complain about the fields that we can offer up than really focusing on what we should be in terms of working with a sport. I've even heard many complaints from my brethren over the football sides that a lot of kids have gotten injured at a lot of these fields. I feel it's a lawsuit that's waiting to happen for a lot of folks out there. And again, when you think about a lot of the time that community members are trying to put into growing these sports, and again, it doesn't matter whether it's my sport, whether it's the baseball program, football, soccer, et cetera, we put a lot of time and effort into trying to drive membership, to try to drive resources towards these. The missing link has always really been the field aspect of what we do. And so I would urge you guys, I learned a lot tonight. I learned that we're spending $32 million on 2 performing arts centers. I just don't understand that. When you think about maybe the number of kids in one side versus the other, I think we've got a community that's got a lot of athletes in here. I've certainly learned a lot from the athletic department and athletics as part of growing up. I know my 3 kids are very involved in that and are taking quite a bit away from it. And I just feel that we need to really prioritize and really focus in on the current condition of fields here in Novato. And it's really, it's really sad what we've got today. I'd really like to see that change, and that's why I'm here today to support and advocate for that, not just for my sport, but across all the sports that we offer out there. Thank you guys for your time. I'll pass it to Chris.
I won't be too redundant, but the safety issue is a real concern out there. And those fields, the baseball and softball, it's very embarrassing. And any family or player that has to put themselves out there just for that, their pride alone, much less getting hurt, that needs to be a serious consideration. You know, out the baseball field the other day, there's literally tumbleweeds gathered up behind home plate. And if these kids can't play in the fall and in the winter, we're really missing an opportunity. In the field space issue, for me, my main concern is I see too many players that are from families that may not be of means. These are kids that are on the cusp of wanting to get involved or possibly not being involved. And if we don't have the proper space to be able to work with these kids, either as hired coaches or as parents, we're losing kids. I'm saying, and we saw it all last year, kids, they want to be there, but we don't have the room to put them out there. We don't have the room to work with them. And they're right on the edge of their GPA, and they just fall off the grid. And my last point is, you know, being a member of the community, you know, I see so many families looking at Novato High or San Marin High, and they're opting out because they can. They're going down to Marin Catholic because it looks pretty, or it has the facilities, or it has the program in place to let these kids really flourish. You know, Novato pride, whether it's San Marin or Novato, we need these fields, in baseball and softball especially. It's deplorable. So that's my point, just to fast track this if possible. Thank you.
Okay, I have 4 remaining comment cards, and then we'll bring the conversation back to the board. I have Kim Staley, Don McCory, Kevin Metcalf, and Eric Anderson are the last 4 speakers.
Hi, my name is Kim Staley. I'm a parent at Olive Elementary, and I'm the new PTA president. My boys just started 3rd and 5th grade, and despite what you might think, I actually love coming to these meetings to hear what Measure G is doing for our schools. I mean, I think it's an exciting time to be in Novato to see the needed improvement and upgrades. So really, thank you guys. Thank you, Mike. You guys are doing a great job and making a difference. My son just got his Chromebook the first day of school. No, I should say yesterday. Super pumped about that. And who's happy about the sewer? We're happy about the sewer. Right? With every flush, we are happy about that sewer. And I'm happy that we're discussing the bond reprioritization, because really we need Olive to be a priority now, not 10 years from now. 10 years from now, my 3rd grader is going to be a graduating senior. And I'm going to be like 56 years old. And as you know, that Olive is the oldest school in the district, 66 years old. And unlike other schools, 40% of our school is classified as socioeconomically disadvantaged. So we really don't have the fundraising base that we need to pay for these improvements ourselves, which is why we come to you and why we're really asking you for help. And we're really just fighting for the basics: air conditioning, a multi-purpose room that holds our entire school, centrally located office, security fencing. And these are things that most all the other schools in Novato already have. Actually, I know I might lose the room here, but for the same price as an 85,000 square foot synthetic turf practice field, we could install air conditioning at Olive and at Linwood. And I do want to say that I don't think that turf fields are equal to air conditioning, and I don't think that they belong in the same bucket. And don't get me wrong, turf fields are great. You wouldn't know this, but I was a 3-sport athlete at San Marin High School. And really, my kids are going to be the kids that benefit from these turf fields, right? And so, but I think air conditioning, it's a health and safety issue. Kids can't, as we heard from parents at Olive, kids can't learn in this environment. It's not safe for them. My son, like Heather's daughter, has come home twice sick, throwing up from being at school. And I just think that is wrong. And I think that our kids deserve better. School should not make them sick. I think that's a bottom line. And over the years at Olive, we've even had generous parents who would say, hey, I'll put an air conditioning unit into your classroom. I'll put in a ceiling fan. But our electricity is so old, we can't even do that. So even upgrading the electrical part would be great. And I would love it if we could be like San Jose and we could say, you know what, the one thing we want is air conditioning. We can't say that because our campus is fundamentally flawed. Our multipurpose room can't hold everybody. Our office is not easily accessible. Our security is wide open. And so when we're asked, why isn't this on your list? Well, it's because we got a huge list. And also, as you've seen from these moms, we're a brand new crowd. We've got 10 more years, so we're not going anywhere. And the last thing I want to say is I hate coming here to complain about Olive because Olive is a beautiful school. We have so much to be proud of, including the Marin County Teacher of the Year, and we just love it at Olive. So I hate coming here to be so negative, but we're so excited about Olive. Despite our facilities, it's a really beautiful school.
Good evening, board members. I didn't come here planning to speak tonight. My name is Kevin Metcalf. I was born and raised here in Novato. I graduated from school here. I played sports here. I played professional sports. Playing on these fields, I've coached as a coach in this town for over 35 years, coaching several different youth sports. And my youngest daughter is graduating from high school this year. I have 3 that already graduated. They all played sports, but the fields that they play on are pretty bad. There's no pride for them to come home to. And these kids, they take a lot of pride in their field. It's what they do. They want to have a home game or a homecoming game, whatever it is, whether it be football, whether it be baseball, softball. The fields at Novato High haven't changed since I played in 1980. It's almost identical, except we had a dirt football field. Now we have a turf football field. The baseball and softball fields are identical as to when I was there. I just think that it's something that we're losing athletes at an abundant rate. Half of the kids that play baseball at Marin Catholic are from Novato. Not that that's neither here nor there, but they play not just because of the field, but because of the exposure that they're getting at the school. Novato should be a place where they're proud to play and not have to go other places. Our fields are just terrible. We had, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, one of the schools wouldn't come play a league game at Novato High softball field because it was so unsafe and the game had to be rescheduled. In that scenario, I don't see why Novato and San Marin can't share the field at San Marin if that's the case, until they can get the field at Novato at least safe to play on. Novato's baseball field is housing 3 teams, and one field and 3 teams is pretty difficult. I know that the freshman team have had to play either at Hill or at San Jose, and those fields are just, they're worse than playing out in a sandlot. And these kids are going to get hurt, and when kids get hurt, they stop playing. When they stop playing, they get involved in things that they might not want to be involved in. I just think we need to keep these kids focused, give them some fields that are good to play on, and make them proud, make the town proud. You know, I'm not proud to go to those fields. When I played on them, they were great, but you're talking 35 years ago. I want to get back into coaching at these schools when my daughter graduates next year, and it's going to be tough to do when you don't have a field to play on. Thank you.
Good evening, and thanks for allowing me the time to speak. I'm Don McQuarrie, the current baseball coach at Novato High. I'm an alumnus. As with Mr. Metcalf, I played on that baseball field before he did. And believe it or not, it's got the same DNA when I was there. My family came to Novato in 1964. I've watched the tradition of baseball in the city of Novato, and it's a very proud tradition. A lot of baseball families, baseball communities, and watching teams go on to state championships. And now coaching at Novato High School, this is my 16th year coaching in the Marin County Athletic League varsity baseball. It's embarrassing what we have to play on, what we practice on. Having to apologize to other teams of what they have to play on when they come to see us. This isn't what our kids deserve. Between 65 and 85 kids at Novato High play softball and baseball every year. And what we give them to play on is embarrassing. I just want to make sure that you know it's not an indictment on the maintenance staff. I get it. They don't have the resources to maintain these fields. Their budgets have been cut. They don't have the numbers. The only answer is turf. If you replace with grass, you cannot maintain it. You're wasting your money. You have some tough decisions. I really appreciate your volunteering to do this. I volunteered because of the kids. I'm very proud of these kids coming up here and testifying before you, and I hope that we can do the right thing for them. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Eric Andreessen. I'm the president of the Novato Adult Soccer League, and I was at one point the president of the Youth Soccer League, and I've coached Novato High School soccer for 3 years. And there's a lot of really important projects, and of course I'm advocating on behalf of the fields. One thing to consider that hasn't been brought out yet, the fields, they're benefiting the high school students. They're also benefiting the youth throughout, all ages. They're used for, soccer, of course, for lacrosse, for football, I hope, perhaps for baseball, some of them at least. Other sports that I'm forgetting. And then additionally, too, besides all the kids, us adults, some of the people in town actually, as adults, continue to use those fields. They are a resource for our community. And I know, for example, my league, we're in the Adult Soccer League, we're unable to find fields to play in Novato on September 9th and 16th. And so we're looking at the two grass fields. And frankly, I am scared to play on them because I and other people have hurt ourselves sometimes on gopher holes. And the fields really are scary. And so if we could get those turfed, it would be great. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes our public comment. And I know this board really appreciates people coming out to speak before us. It helps with the process to hear your perspective and as we move through this. So thank you for taking the time this evening to be here. All right, so let's bring it back to the board. We heard a lot of comments about these are about the projects that Yancey spoke to that are not in the facility master plan, projects that are in the facility master plan but may not be part of the phase 1 list. So those were the comments we heard this evening. So I'll turn it back to Yancey. Do you have anything further to add, or I'll ask the board for?
No, I'd like to open it up to board
Okay.
questions.
Yeah,
Just
Trustee
actually a
Matt.
quick request. We have the principal and the AD for Novato High. Can we ask them to speak, see what they have to say?
Well, they need to fill out a blue card.
Okay.
No. I always have to add a little humor to this board meetings. So, Michelle, would you like to speak? You don't need to fill something out. Yeah. And Mark Sims, I see you sitting there. Would you like to speak to? I don't think he heard me. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There he comes. Okay. So we have two Marks: Mark Brewer, Mark Sims, and Michelle Sanner.
Well, I just want to say how grateful we are, as a community to have this forum and to have a board who is so invested in hearing not only from us adults, but really, leaning on our prerogative of voice and choice of students and allowing our students to come up and speak. And I just want to thank them for coming out as well and doing what you did tonight. I've been a public servant in the Novato community my entire life. I've worked for Park and Rec for 15 years as a coach and transitioned into the high school. I've always worked for either the city or Novato Unified School District. So my interests have always been the student athletes of Novato community. You've already heard tonight about the unsafe playing conditions at NHS's grass fields, baseball, softball, and our lower, what we call multi-use field. Aside from this obvious health and safety issue, you've heard about the superior facilities around the league and the inequity that creates for us as a team. Turfing all at once, I want to touch a little bit on how turfing all at once, the multi-use field, the baseball and softball field, makes financial sense, makes environmental sense, and maximizes the impact of Measure G funds per student at NUSD. But you already know this to be the case, so let me just anticipate your concerns and demonstrate how this project addresses your priorities. If your concern is that this funding is simply for extracurricular, I'd like to point out that these facilities are classroom spaces for upwards of 800 PE students every year. Effectively, turfing these two facilities doubles the classroom space. They are not currently used by PE because they're not safe to use for PE. This reduces wear and tear on the gym and the single turf field that PE currently uses. Basically, it cuts in half the wear and tear when you double the facilities. All of three of these spaces can be used for all sports all year. Over 800 student athletes at Novato High School, that's half of our student body population, with 9 separate teams alone fighting for the use of one single facility in the spring. If your concerns are environmental, then I'd like to point out that cork infill, now used in turf field, eliminates the carcinogenic polymers associated traditionally with rubber fields. It eliminates water as a cost of utility that grows year after year after year. It eliminates the use of harmful herbicides and pesticides that we're exposing our children to. It eliminates vector-borne disease associated with an unmitigated rodent population. Gophers are known to carry hantavirus, and Coach Don McQuarrie alone caught 56 gophers recently. If your concerns are financial, then I'd like to point out that the gap between the grass and the turf is a manageable one when you factor in water, reduced maintenance, rental fees, and the reduced cost of returfing at the 10, 20, and 30-year mark. It's a self-amortizing project that becomes more and more cost-effective over time as it lowers our operating costs, which is our ultimate goal. Furthermore, turf requires no downtime for seed, water, and maintenance. In Mike Willard's presentation back in June, we pointed out the hourly cost associated with the turf field is just under $80, while the hourly cost associated with grass is more than double that at $160. If you're concerned about maximizing the impact of your grant dollars, I'd like to point out that with over 1,400 students, NHS is the largest in the district and simply requires more facilities. All NUSD schools come to us, for the most part, PE, ROTC, club sports, community groups, as Mr. Andreessen pointed out, and all of these benefit directly from this project, as do all NUSD students. If you're concerned about our equity imperative, then I'd like to point out that with the rich ethnic and socioeconomic diversity at Novato High School, this project advocates for students of all backgrounds, not just those labeled as traditionally academic. For many students, sports are a pathway to college and at the very least, an assurance of graduation, as participation ensures passing grades in all their classes. The status quo simply will not stand. Our grass spaces are simply unsafe currently. The question is not whether to replace the grass multi-use fields and the baseball and softball fields, but how to replace them. So in terms of effective learning spaces, environmental impact, financial sense, and maximizing our grant dollar impact, turfing Novato's grass spaces all at once, our baseball, softball, and multi-use fields, as a single project, is the clear and responsible investment in Novato High students. Thanks.
Well, first off, I'd like to thank the students who came out tonight. I really appreciate them advocating for themselves and advocating to the board for the need. If you haven't been over to Novato High, I've been there for 5 days now, or 6. I've been out to the baseball and softball field. If you go look, there's a need. Clearly there's a need. So I would advocate for you as you reprioritize and look at this holistically, which I know you have to do. I would advocate that we get those fields fixed because they're in a condition right now that they're becoming very unsafe for student athletes to participate on. And I would urge you too to remember that supporting student athletes, that athletics is an extension of the classroom. It's a learning experience, it builds character, it develops students, it keeps them in school, and our coaches teach them how to be good people. And I'm a big advocate for that, and I think that moving forward, we've got to find a solution to this need so that they have a great facility to play in, they're proud to be there, and we're proud as a community to host other people here and play on those fields. So thank you for your time. I just hope you weigh that in your decision, and I would let you know that I would really support finding a solution to fix this need. So thank you so much.
Good evening. I'll be as brief as I possibly can be. I think it would be wrong for me in my role to not have some of our staff and our students speak on some of our needs here. I've been here 1 year, and clearly those items which are on the agenda at San Marin are important to all of us. My role is to support our students in the performing arts, and we certainly need that center. We could all greatly benefit, and our community could greatly benefit from turfing all of our fields as well. So I don't want to get in the way without having the representation of our students and our parents and our teachers who work so very hard to put forth a quality effort in the classrooms and on the fields. I have been at all of the sites in the MCAL and up and down the NCS, as we were fortunate enough to be NCS champions in baseball. And there is a different feel that we have, and we try to ensure that our student athletes and our students do the best that they can in the situations that they are in. But clearly, all of our sites within the district could benefit from things like AIR, the Performing Arts Center, because they deserve it, because our parents work hard in supporting our students work very hard in doing what they do, our teachers work very hard in supporting all of that, and administratively we try to support those things. So wrapping up, I've been involved with, I believe, 5 projects now as a school principal, and I don't think I have been as pleased as I have been with our staff in how they have treated me personally as a site principal and listening to me, getting the work done and meeting deadlines. And I would certainly hope with the work that we move forward on, we continue to hit those deadlines to provide a quality product. Because again, I believe this is my 5th project, and it's the best work that I have seen in my role as a school principal. You have a very difficult job. Thank goodness I'm not in your position right now. And I would like to thank everybody for speaking on behalf of the students, the staff, and the parents and the community at Novato Unified. So thank you.
All right, so thank you, administrators, for coming out and speaking. Back to the board. So, yeah, Trustee Millerick, you want to start?
Well, I think we have a long conversation ahead of us, and there's some timing. The first concern I have is when a site principal speaks and comes, if we manage this process by saying the budget for your campus is the budget for your campus, and if you invest in Project A, you have to take money away from Project B, then I understand that you're making decisions that are very similar to the ones we're going to have to make here. So simple advocacy for one solution, I think, is turns out not to be the important conversation we're going to have. The important conversation turns out to be what can't we do? And that's going to take a longer time than just this evening to get through that. Because every time we prioritize something, as our CFO has pointed out, not only is something else delayed, something else, in fact, falls off the end of the bond funding schedule and goes for a bond fund that will submit to the community 10 or 15 years from now. So it's nice to be in favor of something, but to me, the really important conversation is what aren't we going to do, not what are we going to do. So, and I'm looking forward to our site administrators to lead that conversation on their individual campuses. It is a conversation, this whole district, this whole community. I listened to Don McQuaid talk about 16 years coaching, and my hat's off to him. There are a lot of people that volunteer in this town to make this a great place for children to grow up and become adults and raise more children so they can be grandparents in this town. This is a great place to live. We have to figure out how to do this together.
All right, thank you. Trustee Cooper.
Thank you. I guess, we all know we have a very difficult decision or difficult decisions to make. We have a limited pot of resources. I think I have a couple questions. First of all, what is our plan at this point? Aside, what are the alternatives? Could you tell me what could we do to the fields at Novato High other than turfing them at this point? Can we do anything? There's 56 Gophers. That sounds like an extreme problem. And pothole, yeah.
So there are decisions that could be made. Currently, the field is maintained during just previous to and during the baseball season. We could choose to maintain it outside of the baseball season. With that would likely require additional staffing in our grounds department. So there's those kind of things. We're working on some things. We worked with a company this year to try to get the fields in a little bit better shape, and we're planning on working with that company again. We can be obviously more aggressive with rodent and gopher management, but that comes with its own set of issues, given the most effective ways to get rid of gophers aren't always acceptable to certain members of the community.
Well, it's a safety issue, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just the gophers themselves, it's the holes in the mounds that are created by the gophers.
Absolutely. It's the holes in the, yes, that's the risk. But to remove those, you really have to get rid of the gophers. And so there's those issues.
So can we do that? Are we able to do that?
We can. We have to be within our integrated pest management policy, which has changed over the years. In what you can do in Fresno is very different than what you can do in Marin County.
Agreed.
To get rid of rodents, and our integrated pest management policy reflects that. But we can get more aggressive with the pest management. There are also, there are many options that we have to do. It all depends on how much, to be honest with you, how much money that we're willing to put towards the issue.
Okay, because I see, for me, it's a matter of, I like having pride and all that. I think it's a matter, first and foremost, it's a matter of safety.
Yeah.
So I've heard two issues tonight, air conditioning at, you did a nice job, by the way, Mike.
Thank you.
Simplifying this for us board members. So the ones in red, that's a problem for me. That's safety. If kids are injuring themselves on the baseball field, that's a safety issue for me too. So we have limited resources. What are we going to do? So that's why I'm kind of looking for some solutions. The one more question I have, and so the second turf field,
Yes.
does that impact whether we move ahead, or the future financial impact to either replacing the softball field, the girls' softball field, or the baseball field in the future? So can we do those independent of one another without redoing the second turf field in the future?
You can. It will take potentially, definitely us planning, and that was actually why it actually was a great decision by the board in November or December of last year to ask for some more information and ask us to bring back additional information, because with that, we went back and we looked at a longer term view, and all of those, I don't know, it was 5 options. They were like 3A, B, C. So there are about 5 options. They all included the second turf field in the same location. And so that project could move ahead irrespective of the other projects. But it would be smart to look at grading and other issues as we did that, to ensure that doing that project wouldn't impede us doing any of the other projects moving forward.
Okay, because this trustee, I would be in support of moving ahead with that second turf field, but I'm a little undecided and unclear on the other two, so that's why I'm interested. I don't want to lose money in the future or redo the second turf field because we were not thoughtful at this point.
No, given all the options for Novato High in that 10-year plan, they all included the secondary turf field in the same place.
Gotcha.
And so anything that we would do would move forward assuming that there's potential work down the line, and making sure that we provide that, whether that be ADA access or just looking at costs for grading in the future, that we will definitely move forward with that project with the other projects in mind that are coming up. So as of right now, that schematic design is in a holding pattern. So this board could absolutely give me direction to move forward with that project, irrespective of the other projects.
Okay, and I have a couple more questions, but I'll let the rest of the board
Okay.
ask for now.
Thank you. Trustee Aguila, and then Trustee Nell.
Okay, so I have a question about the gophers. When my understanding is when turf goes up above the ground and it touches the ground, and the gophers are we don't have to kill them, but they automatically, when they can't go up, then they'll go away on their own. Is that correct? Without having to use pesticides and.
So they will be out of that area, and Todd Lee from our construction management could note better than I could about the what we do from a construction standpoint to do that. So I'll let him note it.
So the soils in your fields require what's called lime treatment, which alters the chemical makeup of the soil, and it makes it a very tightly compacted surface there. So the gophers are not able to move through it. So I've probably built 24 turf fields. We've never had an issue with a gopher in a turf field. So.
That being said, though, those gophers will move to another non-lime treated area until there's no field left. So, but yes, the turf fields we have not seen gopher issues with in general.
Trustee Nell.
First of all, I want to thank the staff for working diligently on this presentation tonight and the work that we've begun and completed over the summer. Congratulations. The community appreciates what you've done. I also want to just take a minute to thank everyone for coming tonight and expressing your views and where we are on the choices that we have ahead of us. I don't think I can't speak for everyone here, but I'm pretty sure that everyone on the board wants to have as safe schools as possible, and it breaks my heart to hear about the heat issues at our elementary schools, and I think that it isn't something that is necessarily new to us either. I do appreciate you tiering that for us. That it does help us prioritize it somewhat that we haven't had in the past. So I'm going to maybe then just kind of approach this a little bit differently, and the slide on the board might be a good place to talk about it from a process perspective. But for me, I think we kind of need to put the thing in perspective. This district has been in operational deficit spending for over 4 years, and that is a serious budget matter. We have been, in fact, warned by our county superintendent that we need to do something about that. Part of the problem is declining enrollment, and that has to do with just cultural changes in general, and fewer kids means fewer dollars per student from the state that come here. So from that perspective, I'm putting forward the concept that whatever we do, I think we really have to put operational cost into perspective. So just wanted to surface that. So from getting to the slide at this point, I'm not sure I think this is a good idea to wait to the fall of 2019 to start talking about reprioritization. I'm more of the mind that we're sort of in a reset position now. Regrettably, back in 2015, when we started this process, we felt like we had a pretty good idea of what was needed to be done. You saw those photos. We had hundreds of people in the room. People had different ideas, what they thought was important. And we really have to respect that process, and that's where we got where we were today. Unfortunately, economically, fires, whether it's fires in the North Bay or tariffs or whatever issue it is, we are in a different position than we are today. We have our chief financial officer telling us that we could be $35 million above and beyond what we had expected to be paying into our second stage, our second $200 million worth of work. So that to me is very, very significant. And I don't think we can afford to not prioritize the prioritization of these facilities. So I think that, when speaking to my peers here, is that we should probably have some discussion about direction and coming up with some consensus and sending our staff back to come back with some ideas. I'll use the two examples tonight, which were the athletic fields and air conditioning for little guys in elementary schools. I don't think that it has to be one or the other. I think that basically we have a lot of things on this list that we may have to admit sooner than later that we are just never going to get to them. And that undoubtedly is going to make people unhappy, but the sooner we get to the point where we can make that decision, get the word out, that we may in fact may not be doing much kitchen work in elementary schools or whatever it is on here. I don't want to be too specific right now, but I think it's time for a reset. And just as an example, I think that a reset would show that fully turfing the field at Novato High, paring back some things at San Marin and the middle schools as far as the athletic fields go, could be ways to pay for it, and that there's other things we can do to advance our air conditioning needs at the hottest schools that we have. So I right now I'm not happy with the plan, and I think we need a reset. So that's my contribution, and I hope we can continue to talk about it and maybe come up with some ideas about how to do that.
Yancy, can you talk to moving up the timeline to go back to everybody and say, let's revisit the facility master plan if we were to move up to fall of this year?
Absolutely. So you obviously would get a more updated view as we move forward, and there's a lot of good things about that. The potential risk is that with money not available until 2021-22, the work that you do now is going to be farther from that. As you noted, we did work in 2015, 2016, and I believe the board approved the facilities master plan in the summer of 2016. Well, we're now in the fall of 2018, so about 2 years later, and we've seen some changes. We've seen some projects that may have not been included that maybe the sites would look differently upon now. We look at air conditioning fields, those kind of things. But if we're not going to be there potentially into 2022, you're looking at twice the amount of time that has come from the facilities master planning to now as it is from 2018 to 2022. So the potential risk is if you do it too early, you're going to potentially look back and have additional projects and different changes in what the sites are looking for and the sites need for that. So you might have to do it potentially twice. The other thing to note is that at $131 million in approved projects right now, we're already into the first, basically a little less than half of the Series C issuance in that bond. So you might even be talking 2022, 2023 before some of the work will be done. Obviously, we're going to do everything we can to move up the timing. As you noted, one of the biggest killers of the program is the escalation costs. So we want to do projects as quickly as possible and get them done under today's dollars and not the dollars from 2 years, which will buy us less. But given the cash flow, I think the potential risk of moving it up a year is that you now have 3 to 4 years between when you prioritize projects and when they actually start getting in the ground.
Madam President?
Yeah.
So I think timing is definitely one of the legs on the three-legged stool here. But it's from my perspective, it's really more about what we are going to do and complete by the time it's over. And it's good to talk about at every decision we make. We need to know about timing. And regrettably, if we I'm not talking about moving things up, but I am talking about actually getting to something that maybe we hadn't planned to do before. Like, I'll use tonight's examples only because they're examples, and that is athletic fields at Novato High and air conditioning at an elementary school. We would undoubtedly be moving them up, but let's move them up logically in a way that makes sense with the financing, et cetera, and then take some other things off the list. So again, it's, my point was, we really should be talking about what we're going to accomplish and then decide how long it's gonna take.
Trustee Millerick and then Trustee Mack.
I appreciate Trustee Nell's view. I think when you, what I heard him say is, let's not move projects up or back, but I heard him say, let's go revisit the planning exercise. Probably the way, because if we can save money now, and maybe save money now means cancel a project that we haven't yet started, but that's affordable to cancel, that's reasonable to cancel, and we can make those decisions now. That just gives us more time and more to look at in terms of the decisions we're going to have to make. Because it seems to me, after hearing the same conversation now for a year, we are not going to cover the entire list of things that went before the community. And certainly there are areas, air conditioning at Olive and softball fields that we've heard tonight, that are needs that weren't even discussed in that original scope. So I think there's some advantage in having those conversations earlier, only because we can consider canceling projects that of the 131 million that we're going to spend that would give us choices later. And I don't know what those might be, but if you think you're in trouble, the first thing you need is go out and double check all your assumptions and master plans. We've done a lot of that tonight, but at some point we have to, I don't want it to be the projects that got canceled were the ones that were scheduled last, and that was our planning strategy. I want us to do that intelligently.
Thank you.
And with the interest of the community, not say, gee, your project got pushed back a year or so, oh, by the way, there's no money, we're sorry. That's not strategic. That means some school that had their air conditioning project slid back doesn't get it, and in fact, we would have prioritized it first. So I think we need a planning exercise. If not a full planning exercise, we need to go through an exercise before fall of 2019. And I agree with your judgment, how that turns into list the projects you're not going to do. Maybe we downscope some projects that are large dollars and say we got to take 30% of the money out of each of those, and because that's our priority. I mean, I think the one I remember is at San Marin High School. When they built it, they ran out of money, so they didn't put any covered walkways at San Marin High School. And so it was a mud hole for most of its useful life because they just ran out of money. And it wasn't wasn't in the plan, it just wasn't in the budget. I think there's some advantage in having these conversations.
So just to clarify from what I'm hearing, just from Trustee Nell and Millerick, is that basically the sooner we know where we're at, the better, instead of waiting. The sooner we know, we're not going to be able to do these 20 projects, the better we feel to give that message to either the school or the community that the sooner they know, the better, is what I'm hearing, in some respect.
I think it's, yes for us.
It's a minor comment.
But yes for being transparent to our own community.
Yeah. Trustee Mack. Well said.
I agree. Time is money, as the NC knows, and the more we delay, the more these costs just keep on going up. So I'm of the mind that we get cracking, we get down to the list and go through it with a fine-tooth comb, existing and wanted, and figure out what we're going to do to make 103,750 work now. And then things that fall off, okay, that's 2019 exercise. But we need to basically look at this list now and do it. And we should have been doing this, and we should have been pushing for it. But here we are. So let's just get going on it now. With regards to prioritization, I understand where Trustee Millerick's coming from about making it a bit of a site exercise. Have each of the sites do a hard look at what they've got and what they can do. And I agree with that to an extent. However, I would say that there's also a need to look at across campuses as well, because there are some inequities. There are some big dollar items going out to the middle schools that probably are much better invested ultimately in our larger high schools. That's my preference. And as well, even the two middle schools, as we found out, they're $10 million apart. largely because of one very large building. And I'm going to go ahead and start getting explicit. So the gym at Sinaloa, I think, is a nice to have. I think, and it's a big dollar item. I don't know that we need it. I think we can be creative and still solve Sinaloa's problems without it. That's number one. Number two, the middle school tracks and turf. More of the same. I'd love to see the tracks go in because I know they need to get rid of that mud, but I don't think they need turf fields. That we need them at the high schools. I'm just going, I know, it's just me. I'm going through some of the stuff. And then the last thing I want to point out is with regard to the air conditioning, I 100% agree. It's got to be done. However, I think we're going to have to look at the Olive campus and think about ways to change up the plan there and how to make it work. That's where I'm coming. And then last but not least, in terms of getting explicit, I'm an MSA dad, have been forever. I got to admit, $25 million for a PAC is starting to scare me. Starting to wonder, maybe we should take something similar to what San Marin has and put it at Novato High and then downscale the San Marin one too and save a lot of money in the process. I'm just putting it out there as an idea. Yeah, well, wait till the MSA people get a hold of that. They're going to come in here and pit. Anyway.
Contact Trustee Mack on that
Yeah,
one.
exactly.
Not
No.
us.
Hey, you know what?
Put your thumbs away.
Folks, one thing, if anybody knows me, I'm not a political guy. So I just want to get to the facts, because I know we were all dancing around it. I heard it. Let's just say it. That's what we're looking at. Lastly, I'd like to also point out that this process goes way, way, way back to the recession, the Great Recession of 08, 09. And this board, before me, was heroic in the way it kept this district afloat. It cut everything it could, but we still had kids in the classrooms. We still succeeded.
That was us.
It was brutal.
Wasn't a priority.
And we didn't cut just the bone, we cut out some bones. I mean, it was bad. Now, fast forward, thanks to the LCAP, thanks to a better economy, we're in a much better place. However, we never put a single dollar back, as far as I know, tell me if I'm wrong, into maintenance. Maintenance is at the same budget level it was back then, for the most part. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's my take. That's my understanding.
We've added very little too.
Okay.
When we did all those cuts, Greg, our main focus was to keep all of those cuts
Understood.
away from the classroom. And it
Totally-
was this board, with the exception
Totally
of
agree.
you, just so you know.
And totally agree with it. I would have done the exact
It
same
was the
thing.
right thing to do.
Absolutely. But coming back, now we've done all this investment, but we've never touched the facilities maintenance, and that's where we are. And that's why we basically look at Novato High, anything past the parking lot should be condemned. Period. But anyway, so I think we do have a lot of work to do. And I know I said a lot there, and I'll just leave it at that
No,
for now.
it's fine. Trustee Nell and Trustee Aguila, Trustee Scott, and Trustee
Just
Miller.
brief, I appreciate trustees Mack's illustrations. I don't really want to get too specific right now, but I would say, for example, $25 million for a performing arts theater is scaring him even as an MSA parent, but maybe it is no orchestra pit. So in addition to what we decide not to do in the long run, I didn't mean that we wouldn't reevaluate what we could do with what we've got underway. There's undoubtedly $1 million here and $1 million there. Gee, I wish I could say that about my household budget.
Yeah, right.
But that's I think going to be part of the process as well. So I didn't really want to leave the impression that it was all going to be about what we wouldn't get to. I think we can do things with what's in the plan as well.
Trustee Aguila.
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier that I was upset that the state is not funding us for any of these facilities, but that we had no control over that. Now we're going to revisit and reprioritize. I think we need to look at the fact that there were some balls that were dropped. Why didn't we have representation for Olive? I mean, the principal. But why not enough? Why, and Olive was not the only school that, there were some balls were dropped. And I get that. And whose fault was it? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So what matters now is safety. And I'm thinking that if we're gonna go back and do all this work again, we wanna make sure that, why not have the principals, I mean, we talked about revisiting, but why not have the principals come back to us, and why can't we present to them as, what is it that you are willing to sacrifice from this list? We already have the list, the work's been done. So why can't they go look at the list and say, and we present it as, what from this list that's already created, that we spent all this time and money doing, what can you sacrifice from this list? So that Olive can have the AC, and that we can have the fields done. And so that way, they're the ones that know. We're just sitting here, we go visit and everything, but they're the ones, it's their baby. So if we can hear back from them and have them tell us what they are willing to sacrifice from that list that we already worked on, I think it'll make things move faster.
Trustee Miller, do you want to?
I would like to comment. I think what Trustee Nell noted, and at looking at individual projects, Trustee Mack noted, I think that's important. I think we really do need to look at as we finalize these projects, are these things the absolute need? But I do want to bring back the fact that we took 6 months with the Bond Implementation Committee to do their work. And if you look at escalation costs of what we're doing, that came at a cost. That came, whatever you want to say. If you want to say it was $2 million, if you want to say it was $5 million, if you want to say it was $10 million, we paid a cost to make sure that we do the right projects. And I will say that we did our best to bring 50 people together on that Bond Implementation Committee to really try to do the best cross-section of this district that's possible. And so I do warn the board and the community around the work that we've done and the prioritization work that we've done to move forward with it. I'm not saying that we don't look at the orchestra pit, that we don't say another project, do we need to, around the edges on those projects. And absolutely, as we move forward into this next phase of the project, that we need to be very careful, because we do know things that we didn't know then. But the Bond Implementation Committee did prioritize what they believe. This wasn't we think this is the best way to do it because it goes north to south or south to north or east to west. These were the most important projects to do in the district. And so I just, in my opinion, my recommendation is that we move forward with the projects that they've recommended as the most important projects. Now, as we move forward in this new prioritization project process, and as we look at the facilities master plan, absolutely, we need to be looking doubly hard at the things that we're doing, because we know now that there are projects that aren't going to get done. And I will say, though, that when we look at projects that won't get done, and I know this isn't going to be comfort to that, I mean, we had $500 million of needs in this district, and they will continue, but we will still continue to do those projects, whether it be from an additional bond, whether it be from other sources. We will try to get every single one of those projects done. Maybe it won't be with the Measure G funds, but we will continue to try to get every project on that list, as long as it's still something that is prioritized by that community to go. But back to the point, I do think we did pay a price for the Bond Implementation Committee. We felt it was valuable. I still think it's valuable. And moving forward, there were a cross-section of this community. They worked really hard. They tried to bring every little bit. And so if we want to move around the edges, that's okay. But I think to push their work away and say we're going to look at it again, we're going to change direction right now, is a little bit, is going to, and I don't want to say waste that money, but we're saying that work maybe wasn't worth it. And I do believe it was worth it. I think it was very worth it. So sorry, that's what I wanted to.
No. Trustee Scott, who really would like to make comment. So
yeah, I've been waiting.
And then I have Trustee Millerick.
So, Yancey, I do appreciate everything that the bond committee did, and yes, time is money. But I also think instead of us looking at it next year, we need to address it this year. And this is just my opinion. For me, moving forward, I want to make sure that also the items that are on the list, I mean, the two things that have been brought forward from the community today are around safety. And that's an issue. It's a big issue. So I'm in favor. I mean, I heard Trustee Nell say that he's looking for something instead of next fall sooner. I would like to see something sooner in terms of us looking at this list again. You know, I know time is money, but these are issues that are coming from the community, and the community is what's driving this. So obviously, I think we need to address it and find a way.
Trustee Millerick?
So a couple of points to make. When you look at a project and you say, okay, something's not going exactly the way you want, what you, in my view, you don't stop doing the work that's currently in process. You let it continue. You let the teams that are in place, you let the operational side of this thing, the stuff it takes architects and engineers and planners to get going that's got long lead times, you let all that stuff keep running. And you start planning for the stuff that's ahead of that is earlier in the process. So I wouldn't throw away the work that's been done by 50 members of this community that I think was, and to suggest that we could find another 50 members today, another 50 members today that could do a better job than those 50 members.
We're not saying that.
Nobody's saying that. Yeah.
We're not saying
No, I think that, and I also don't think 7 officers are the ones to make the decision. I think we need a process. I think we need a process that maybe is expedited, but I don't think we should pick a point and say the ones that are already moving, we keep them going, and we get Yancey to tell where that is, because I don't want to lose velocity and the cost of time is money and all that stuff. But I would like us to have some consideration. And to me, fast isn't like, you know, by November 6th. The fast is like by March 15th or something. I think, Shelley, you're going to be off the board by the time these decisions are made. I think it's a 6-month process. I don't think it's a 2-month or tonight process. And I don't think this board should be making a decision without whoever newly gets seated in her seat, and we have a community process that opens the door and gives them a chance to participate. But I don't want to wait a whole year either.
I just don't want to wait a whole nother year.
I want to respect your operational side to get the best value for our money. We have been slammed, and it isn't just that costs went up. I want to say this. This is important. The Nevada Unified School District, for decades, has put children first. We have done things that other districts have not done. We have twice as many athletic programs now as we had 20 years ago. We have lacrosse. We have if you did the inventory, and I watched as each of those got added, and every one of those is a cost, and every one of those is an additional field, and every one's an additional coach, and all of a sudden, and my wife was on the Open Space Commission, they opened up Albert Park so that they could have 3 fields, so adult play got off the Novato fields, so this community had more fields for its youth to be able to play. Babe Ruth and those teams went someplace else. We have been working in Novato for decades to meet our students' needs. But it's not just athletic needs. We have an MSA program we did not have before. We continue to have a strong ROTC program. We did not have that before. We're going to commit dollars for a STEM center at San Marin. We didn't have a STEM program at San Marin. We are building programs that serve our youth so they will be successful in life. And part of it's athletics, but our program, in terms of how it serves the student, has been growing. And we're stressing our facilities, and we're stressing our budget. And our faculty, maybe isn't, part of that money came because our salaries aren't the same as San Rafael salaries. Everybody stepped up to this plate to make things possible. Coaches volunteer their time. We don't pay them for walk-on coaches. The whole community has done this, but it's been students first. And we're talking about facilities like this is the end all to beat all. But remember, this is all about programs for kids. So when we think about all of this stuff, whenever you look at any one of these things, if you're a principal or an athletic director or a parent, think what's best for kids. And if a few kids go to Marin Catholic, that's fine, but we got a lot of kids coming from Southern Marin to go to STEM and go to MSA. So we offer great programs in this town. Do not knock the Nevada schools programs. We have hugely powerful faculties that do wonderful things. And that's come from the leadership of this board to put students first. So we can argue about all the physical plant stuff and have those conversations and which track or which building, but we've always put kids first, and I want us to continue to put kids first.
You've used all your time up. I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Hogaboom. He'd like to speak to this.
So I have a process suggestion for you to consider. So I think it's clear that things have changed over time. I think that the facilities master planning process was a good one. The bond implementation committee was a good one. It doesn't mean it couldn't be better. It doesn't mean that there are needs that maybe didn't get articulated at Nevada High with baseball or maybe with air conditioning at some of the schools. So obviously we need to reprioritize things. But my suggestion is to really look closely at the phase one projects, and including the ones that we've started. So this is kind of to your point, Maria. I think we need to look at the phase one project we've started. Where are we with them? Which ones have we not started? Because really the pending decision is with the $103,750,000. That's all you have, right? That's going to get, the next bond selling is going to take place in 2019 of $53,375,000. So the only pressing decision you have to make is what are you going to spend that after that, it's going to be another 2 years. So there's really, I appreciate talking about which, projects are going to fall off the list and stuff. To me, that is a thoughtful process that the next iteration of the bond implementation committee needs to make a recommendation to you all. And that's one where we do want the community, because that's going to be some hard decisions, and people aren't going to get some things that they thought they were, and they're not here right now, right? They don't even know that what they thought they were going to get, whether it's expanded kitchens or expanded stages at the elementary or what have you. Those are not going to get done, and there's $30 million worth of them. But I think that can wait. We have time. We can thoughtfully think about it. So my suggestion is that we really concentrate on revisiting that list of phase one projects, as well as the other two issues of air conditioning. And I would limit that also to just the air conditioning of tier one schools. So you're talking Loma, Linwood, and Olive. The other one, Rancho, Lou Sutton, it's clear that's tier two. We don't need to worry about that. So, the cost of doing those three schools is $4.4 million. Okay, is there a way to get that into the $103,750,000? The other issue is the fields. So let's look at the total cost of the fields, which I don't have it exactly, but let's just say it's $12 million. So can that be put in the 103 or 750 or not? If not, you've got time. We're not going to release another $50 million for another 2 years. So really the pending decision for this board is what do you want to spend the $103,750,000 on that's coming up right now. So my suggestion is we bring back to you that list of where we are with those tier one projects. What was the original estimate? How much have we spent? What are we looking at? And to what you were saying, Greg, is we look at each one of those and kind of go through, okay, yeah, we're going to continue on with this. Is everybody good? And kind of look through, though, and revisit those, because we can't revisit the whole thing. We don't have the manpower, the woman power, the time, but we can look at the top 103 million. So that's what I would suggest is we bring back to you in another session, and we go through those phase one projects, and then we look at those other ones for you to consider and what would fall off, and maybe we bring back some different scenarios. Would that work?
Yeah, no,
So that's just a suggestion to think about.
Whoa. Thank you very much, Superintendent Hogaboom. Yeah, we needed that. So Trustee Mack, and then Trustee Nell, Trustee Aguila.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Cooper. So, but I'm going to say them anyway because I want to be a little more clear. So, but anyway, no, yeah, I'll try to be clear. Yes, yeah, it's getting late. But a little bit more specific. I would I would like to kind of have us take a bifurcated approach or a two-stage. Effectively, first stage, focus on the work that's already been done by the BIC. So, the list that's supposed to add up to 103,750, but is adding up to 131. Let's take a long, hard look at that and how to make it fit into 103,750. And if that means potentially pulling in the air conditioning, we're going to have to decide on that. But so I'm fudging a little bit there with what I just said. But that's the thing: is don't reinvent what's already been released for stage one. Let's look at it, take a hard look, and figure out how we can get it to fit into 103,750. If that means taking some of these very large numbers and making them smaller, taking some off, like that $10 million number that I keep talking about, that's the exercise. And I think that's us. We just do that because we've already gone through the BIC and it's more efficient. Let's just knock it out, get it done. I'd like to have that done before the election. I would like to have Shelley as part of that. I'd like to have that done so that we can get those projects kicked off in December. And I know that's what you guys would like too, if you could. But that's putting the pressure on us to make those decisions. The second stage, okay, phase two. That's when we bring back the BIC and we do it all over again for everything that's not in there, but it's now a realism game of 53 million, what fits in there. That's pretty straightforward. So I think we start meeting and we start working on this 103 million ASAP. Thank you.
Trustee Nell and then Trustee Aguila.
Just three things. One, I just wanted to thank Trustee Milrick for bringing the focus back to the students. I know for sure that's why all of these board members were all up here for the right reason, and that's because we care about our kids and your kids, and that is the focus. So thank you for bringing that.
In this room, actually.
Yeah, everybody. Thank you. Yeah, exactly. All of us. So, and I also wanted to talk to Assistant Superintendent Hawkins about my comment. When I meant reset, I didn't mean go back to the beginning. I meant where we're at now, and I think Trustee Milrick kind of followed up on that. But I just wanted to make sure that my intention was never to go back to the beginning, so don't panic. And I think we should, and for the rest of the board, I think we should move on the superintendent's suggestion that we, where we are now is where we are now, but let's see what we can do to add the things based on need that need to be added, and to come up with the funds in two ways. One is to cut what we've on the list and begun, and the other is to just decide what we're never going to get to. So I appreciate that suggestion on the part of the superintendent.
Great. Trustee Aguila.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to, almost the same things that you said, but I wanted to just, first of all, thank Trustee Millerick for bringing this up, and you have some really good points, and I think that we need to just remember that we're here trying to keep the kids' safety first, and I also never meant to say when we were going to go back. I mean, I'm not talking about starting over. So this is just about having the same plan, the same people, the same 50 people. And so I'm just saying that, and I never meant to say that we're not doing a great job. Yes, the balls were dropped, but that's, nothing's perfect, and we're learning from, and we're moving forward. And I'm not saying let's go back. I'm just saying let's fix these two safety issues that were brought up today. And to me, there's just like no other way around it. I mean, it needs to get fixed, period. And the decisions would be great coming from each site. Like I said, it's their site, it's their baby. They're the ones that are there every day. They're the ones that know what needs to be done. And the reason, again, I just want to stress, the reason why I think these two things need to be addressed and fixed is because it's an issue. It's a safety issue. It's not about elections. It's not about threats. And by the way, I don't work well with threats. And I'm thinking that this needs to be fixed. It's a safety issue. Kids are going to get hurt, and we can't allow this to happen. So and so again, thank you for all the hard work, and I never meant to say let's go back and start all over. So
I don't think any of us were saying that. I don't think any of us
Yeah,
were
and if
saying
you-
starting over.
Everybody clarified their comments.
It's really more adjustment and scope.
So let's, what I would like, so I support Superintendent Hogaboom's suggestion. I fully agree. And what I would like to, though, is the second turf field at Novato High. We've already done a lot of legwork on that. Can we just continue to move that forward? If the
So,
board supports that.
if the board gives me direction, I would love to bring back a schematic design for the second turf field. It is pretty much ready to go.
Okay.
We've spent the time doing we've spent time and money on that project, getting it ready for the board, and I don't think it's going to be any more ready than it is now. So I would be delighted
And
to
it would be
bring.
ready for the summer of 2019? No.
Definitely by soccer season.
By soccer season, it would be done.
1920.
Okay. Let's pull
I'd have
I
to
know,
go. I'd have to talk with.
Trustee Cooper supported that. I just want to hear from the rest of the board if,
I support bringing the second playing fields that was in the original scope, the square soccer.
the second turf field at
second
Novato High School.
turf field at-
This is,
at Novato High, and does that include San Marin?
no, it doesn't, because they've specifically stated they wanted to put it on hold.
Okay,
They're
that's fine.
trying to
I'm
wait
good
to
with
see what
that.
the
Let's
lights,
get
with the
done what
lights.
we
And
know
Novato
we
High
need.
does not have lights, so it's,
I support that as well.
okay, and Superintendent, I know you'd like to be superintendent, but, Trustee Nell, sorry.
No, I would not like to be the
No.
superintendent.
I don't think any of us would. No.
If I understand you correctly, I would be able to support that. I don't think it includes the safety issues, the need that's been addressed around the girls softball field or the baseball
Right,
field. And I don't think it makes sense operationally, ongoing budgetary operational, to just put a postage stamp up there and continue to have the same two problems at both those fields. I think we should be directing staff, if we're gonna move ahead with it, we have a somewhat calculated plan, option 3B or 3C for Novato High School that make all the sense in the world to me. And doing anything less than that would, quite frankly, be a waste of money.
No. Yes.
We have, let's get clarification on it, because there has definitely been a proposal put forward for Novato High School within a 10-year plan. There's a 1, a 2, a 3A, a 3B, and a 3C. So when President Butler asked about the Novato High second turf field, I wasn't sure which option she was discussing.
So what I think we're talking about, Derek, is that the second turf field, which would be for basically soccer and lacrosse and PE during the day, it's in the same location, I think, under a bunch of different drawings under the 10-year plan. So putting that in isn't going to preclude a turf baseball field or a turf softball field. We've already got the plans drawn for it. We've got Novato High School administration, I believe, an athletic director, and everybody wanting to move forward with that. And so if we got approval on that, we could get that done next summer, so it'd be ready in the fall. So it just, we've talked about it. It was already in tier 1. It's very highly supported. And I think there's, I mean, maybe that's the question, is there general consensus? Because if we don't bring that back sooner rather than later, it's not going to happen for next fall. So it'd be to bump that project up and get approval so we can move ahead.
I do
Superintendent
not
Hogaboom.
support that option.
Okay. Trustee Aguilar, would you like to?
If we're not going to be talking about that, I don't support it either.
Okay. Trustee Mack.
And I'm trying to find an option in here, and options 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, and there really isn't one that just does the turf fields and that's it. Every one of them has extra stuff thrown in, like whether it's a
Right.
tennis courts or a parking lot.
The 10-year plan, right.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think I heard at one point to turf the 3 fields, right? So softball, baseball, and the rectangle was 8 million, I think. And
Yeah, I'd
basically
have to
straight
go back.
across.
That's
I think that was the
Yeah.
number. Yeah, I don't think we can wait. I'm with these two board member trustees. I think we need to get going on this ASAP. So while I am in favor of moving forward with the rectangle, I would not want to do it unless we are going to start moving forward also with the other 2 fields. I don't want to sit on our hands anymore for this. That's my concern, that basically we're going to approve that and it's going to be 3 years before we even get to these other fields. Or, as we heard some parents say, it'll never happen. And I don't want to be that board member who didn't let it happen. So my take is that I would instead prefer we propose all 3 fields.
That's what I thought it was, so
The 8
my
million.
apologies.
Oh, yeah, no, it's strictly just the second turf
And-
field.
yeah.
And my only thing is no to that is because the baseball and softball were not on any of the facility master plan list. So it's taking a project that's not part of the scope of them and throwing it back in and saying, okay, Novato High, you're gonna get all of this, but these other schools are not gonna get this. And that takes away from our process. And that's where I spoke to Superintendent Hogaboom. I agree with his process, where that discussion can happen regarding those 2 other fields, the softball and the baseball field. And then we have to throw in San Marin as well. What are we gonna do with the San Marin baseball field? So you start, it's a full conversation of not just the people in this room, it's across our sites, so.
But if I could just
Yes.
respond, I would say that this is no different than what happened with the San Marin PAC. The San Marin PAC tripled in cost because we decided to completely change our approach instead of trying to manage it. This is the same situation.
We were talking about the PAC all along.
True,
But
true.
But we've already
it
done a lot
tripled
of
in
stuff on
cost.
this. We've already spent a lot of money on it with designs and everything else. So in my mind, we've already been working on it.
On the second turf.
On the
That's
second
all this is solely. We've not done any work on the other 2 fields.
That is correct. Just some very preliminary estimates.
Just
No money.
Yeah. But the second turf is
Second
farther
turf.
along.
Second turf field we've been working on over a year.
Yeah. And it's in the same location across the plans that we've received. I mean, I have so many copies of plans, and it seems to be all in the same location. So I'm trying to provide an asset to Novato High, who needs it desperately.
No. Me?
Trustee Millerick and then Trustee Nell.
To me, it's, if we're gonna, we had the bond committee, we had an original scope, we went to the community, the 50-member committee went through this. If we're gonna add millions of dollars by increasing the scope to include the baseball fields in addition to the, what do we call it? Soccer field? What do we call it?
The second turf field?
The second turf field, this rectangular thing. That's a conversation I think we need to have in a broader context. I don't think it's something that first of all, I don't know if we have an action item tonight in any case, but even
No,
if
we just give direction.
right, so we would have to have it come back for us for a conversation. But I want that conversation to be had in the context of what aren't we going to do? Maybe what we're not going to do is the gym at Sinaloa, maybe, and that provides the facilities to do this. But I think we owe the community that broader conversation. I think the community's clear that we need a second turf field at Novato High because there's no lights. I think they're clear about that, and I think we ought to give the superintendent and the staff directions to do what the community's clear about and not get in their way of them doing their job. And then we can have the conversation that we're having now about what additional work should we do. And I'm happy to have that conversation next week or the week after or before Shelley leaves, but I don't want to stop them when they walk out of here tonight and go, like, Jesus, how are we ever going to do our job? The board keeps getting in our way. I want to give them a green light to do what they've got a clear plan for and do that and then have this conversation. And however it comes out, it's going to come out. Maybe, but I think part of that is we have to say where we're going to pull the money from. And if it's the MSA facility and we're going to pull it from that, or the ROTC marching facility, or it's the San Marin STEM or the STEM building at Novato High, we're going to pull it out of there. But I think you can't just take money out of thin air. I think you got to find it from someplace. So I would support just doing the turf field tonight, giving staff direction. Keep going, don't stop, get that work done, bring it back to us. And by the time it comes back to us, we'll have had a chance to have that bigger conversation about the other athletic facilities, because we ought to have that sooner than later. I agree. Right.
Trustee Nell.
So, wanted to address your process concerns, and I, for one, I agree. You want to do the best that you can to withhold what was discussed, but the concept around a second turf field at Novato High never began by excluding the baseball or the softball field. What happened there was we came up with a dollar amount. the same way we came up with a dollar amount for the theater at San Marin, and we said, tell us what you can do, and they came back with what they could do with those dollar amounts. In the case of San Marin's theater, the process that we're talking about proved out that it was farly inadequate, and there was no way that we could do it, and that the right thing to do, though it was going to cost a lot of extra money, but from a long-term perspective, operationally, we wouldn't have saddled the future boards with cheap decisions around how we made that old building work. And the same thing applies here. We were expected a full turfed softball, baseball field, but the money wasn't there. So I say the principle is the same, that we have two fields that we haven't been able to maintain for decades. There's just no way from an operational perspective, and it's disingenuous for anyone to say that we're going to make the softball field or the baseball field at Novato High safe to use. We don't, and it would be irresponsible for us to put the millions of dollars it would take to make those grass fields safe to use. So I'm making these points because I want to draw some parity to the same situation. I'm suggesting that what we're doing here is investing wisely up front for the sake of our operational budget and for also meeting a need. These programs exist. We know that we don't have enough fields. These particular fields, though named girls softball, boys hardball, baseball, are the primary use, but they're going to be used for Pee-wee soccer and Pee-wee lacrosse, both boys and girls as well. So I don't think, I respect staff as much as anyone around here, but I don't think that we should make a decision for expediency to make it something that, I don't want to hold them back either, but I don't want to direct them to do something that's frivolous and long-term could be a bad ROI on the investment. So I hope that the board would reconsider the concept that we ask them to come back with a way to pay for what needs to be done to provide safe fields in a responsible investment method. So I hope that helps some of you with what we should be doing. And we'll get to these other things as prescribed.
President Butler, I would like to just note one thing on timing, just so that the board does. So if we want to do this work next summer and have, if the secondary turf field wants to be done prior to the soccer season next year, we will need a decision in the next couple of months on that. And so I don't know, I don't know if the process would allow that. So that's just a.
Right, the process, if we were to move it into the suggestion. Okay. No, I have trustee Cooper and then trustee Mack.
That's okay. You got your chance. You're coming. I never heard that there was a lack of this building, this single field was going to impact our ROI on this project. I didn't see, I asked you, I thought that, was there any financial benefit or reason not to build the single second field standalone? Is there any reason?
There's not, as long as we design it with the knowledge that other fields may be there, so that we're putting ADA access, we're doing those things.
Question, but
no, there's no reason to not move forward as it impacts the other site, given the different options that were brought forward by our landscape architect and construction management group.
And I guess,
so every one of those included the same second turf field.
And I guess here's the other thing is that we've already done a lot of work and invested a lot of money into this second turf field. And if we do wait, that's going to push it off a whole nother year. So that's going to be pushed off. And even if we go ahead, best case scenario, we couldn't do those, the baseball or the softball fields for next year, right?
Very unlikely.
Okay. We can still work on that, but in the meantime, we can respect the students at Novato High, and that community has spoken, and there's a need. And we've already spent money on it.
I clearly would like to do the baseball and softball. There's no doubt about it. And in maintenance-wise and what it says, I fully agree with Trustee Now, but we have to put it through a process, and I want to put it through what Superintendent Hogaboom suggested. But this second turf field was already in the works. It's already going. It's already there. It's not going to change location. It's ready to go, and Novato High will have a second turf field next school year, and they need it. So if we don't move on it, they're not going to have a second turf field. That's the way.
Is that actually factual, that we couldn't commit to it and not do the center field first and do the ball fields a year later?
Can you repeat the question? I don't know if I understood
I don't see why we couldn't commit to the entire project and still deliver on the lacrosse soccer section by next year. You said you would build it to accommodate the other ones, so essentially that's what I'm saying.
So let me repeat the question so that I am clear. Are you noting that if we decided today that we were doing the whole set of fields, that we couldn't put on the second turf field as of next year? Is that?
Yeah, I'm saying, could we still put the what do you guys call the second turf field? It's a lacrosse, soccer.
A multi-use field, a multi-sport field.
And if we committed to do everything that's needed to be done there, because we still haven't really given anyone an answer about how we're going to provide softball and baseball fields. So I'm just saying, why don't we commit? If the holdup is like we won't have anything by next year, why don't we commit to the whole project, but put the multi-use field in first, and then finish and unfortunately we'd have to do the other fields the following year, I would imagine.
I want to have Superintendent Hogaboom chime in here.
Okay, so what about this? So we can't get this done for the meeting next week, so we're looking at September 18th. We'll clear time on that. We will look at what are the priorities, the tier 1 priorities, and everything else we want to do with the $103,750,000. We'll look at all, including what tier 1 projects have we started, what tier 1 projects have we not started. We'll look at the whole thing. Then secondly, we can bring the secondary turf field, and you can see how it fits into the big picture. But we're going to need, if you want to get that second turf field done by next fall, you need to move on that. But we can put it in the context of the whole $103,750,000, and then we'll bring that as a separate item as well. So you guys can give us direction on it. That would be my suggestion, so you look at the whole picture. But we just kind of want to get going on the second field, because I think in all scenarios, we're going to do that anyway. So why don't we just get started on it? So that would be my suggestion. Look at the whole thing, but bring that item as well on September 18th.
And air conditioning, right? Are you saying air conditioning as well? Okay.
That's exactly what I meant.
And I agree with that, but I would clarify it further. I think what we need to do is come down to a firm decision by your deadline so that the rectangle and whatever else can be done in time for the winter 19 season, right? So I see no reason why we have to move on the rectangle today, because I think if we do, we're going to lose urgency. I'm just being candid. We're going to lose urgency on the other two fields, and they're going to slip. And before you know it, they're going to be in 2021, 2022. I really want to use the urgency we have in the room tonight to effectively marry those projects together and see if on the 18th, whatever date you're talking about, if we can put together a plan for putting it all together and doing it. Now, if we can't, that's a different story. If we can't find a way to support the money for all three of them, that's a different story. But let's give it a shot, and then basically they're all going. That's where I'm coming from.
So I think just noting the Superintendent Hogaboom's plan, what's on your screen right now is the $103 million. That's the $103 million. So, any project we put on, we got to take something off there.
Yep.
So we'll bring it back.
So
Yep,
make
absolutely.
Ask us what we're going to take off, not just what we're going to add.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I'm happy, Madam, may I?
Yes, yeah, we make, yeah.
So I like the superintendent's plan. I have no interest in making a direction tonight that we're
No.
gonna buy the whole thing. I want
No.
the soccer field built. I want it built as soon as possible. I don't want that, and I'm happy as soon as possible to have the conversation about the context of how do you meet the need for this issue that we're hearing in the room, both of them, in the context of fitting in at 103 million. Because I think that's the job as trustees we're required to do, is make it to fit into the budget that we've got. Not do it because some of our friends asked us to, do it because it's fiscally possible and sound, and that way we give staff a task that is doable, not a wish list that they go, oh my God, I can't even, this is impossible, I can't do it, are they crazy? So I would like to bring this back, I would like to follow superintendent's recommendation, direct them to continue working on the thing that's common to all of the fields, keep that moving so we don't miss that date, because they need it to run their programs, and then bring the rest back, and I'm
Yep.
happy to.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm happy to have that as soon as we can get it scheduled, and
So I would also even push to maybe even having another one of these workshops. And not at a regular board meeting. We have important board business that needs to occur on the 18th, just as, just like on the 4th of September, this next Tuesday, because our main thing is education. And so if we can do another separate Tuesday for strictly just this conversation, I think that would be a good.
I'm available Tuesdays this term.
Okay.
I have some dates that I'm not going to be available, so I want to make sure that we,
I'm not here on
I'm out of town on the 11th.
are we talking September?
I'm out of town on the 11th.
What about the 25th of September?
I can do that.
I'll make it work.
Tuesdays work.
I can do the 25th.
Tuesday the what? Tuesday
You
the
already
what?
had a, so for right now, it's tentatively the 25th of September, this same,
Maria, are you good?
right back here.
Ross,
I'll
are you
make
We'll
good
stick
with
to our
25th?
regular board business on our
Derek?
regular meeting dates.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll start at 6. Okay. So we've given the direction to staff. Great conversation board. I know we kind of bantered back, but that's part of the game. That's what we do, and we all want, in the end, we want the same thing, I think. So it's how we get there. So I appreciate that. This meeting is adjourned, but we'll have a regular board meeting on the 4th of September, this coming Tuesday, and we'll see everybody there.